He was like, and I'm like, is he sick? Yeah, Liz.
And so you already have the channel up on the website?
After we left you.
Or do I have to send you this link?
I know she'll remember the name of it. And they have like a sandwich at the day, they have kind of pastries and stuff. We decided we got to come back just to make a trip to there. But it was really good. That's the thing I love about going into small towns is you talk to people.
Okay.
At the hospital and say, oh, you live here.
Okay.
And I know you and I went to some, it was like an older house one time for lunch.
And they're closed down.
Yeah.
I don't know that I had vendors that would come see me once a month, and I never bought anything from. That's one of my.
They just want
I never buy anything. So you come.
Lunch.
I can come back here.
Do you want it to yours or business office?
I can stay up there and Tuesdays at golf course is a 2-for-1.
There you go.
And I thought, man, I'm glad I'm not hiring you to work.
I know.
A year later, he was on the floor.
Yeah, look, that kind of stuff will get you catch up with you. But I love going in the small town. That's just like, I'm trying to get them all. And their coordinator, he was so walked in on the last night and said,
And that's the problem. And it's-
Quit the hospital altogether, not just that wrong.
just laughing. And my recruiting tool for having them visit in December was, this is the most beautiful time of Christmas. If you'll just come down here, bring your wife, bring your husband, come down here for Christmas. And then we'll have to punt it to January. So it's like, geez.
Always other duties. And, some of the other duties are mandated.
No speakers are on, right?
Work commission, some of that, shoulder.
Right, but none of them are actively on.
I've taken way down there to the hospital.
That's because they're not turned on.
He actually.
No. Agreed. I'm just hearing things up there,
with him.
but it's not turned on.
And Hawkins got sick.
When y'all come down, call us.
I've rode through there. I've not got one in the cabin.
That's what I was trying to figure out because now we're also live streaming on
Hey,
YouTube.
Jim. How you, sir?
I'm gonna get the mask out. Shake hands.
Well.
And did you put that on the website? Okay.
I could be fixed.
I just squirted mine. So.
I wonder when Arvin comes down there. And I'd love to do it soon.
Which is on there.
Get.
And then I'm gonna update the invite.
So,
I mean, I love going to small towns. You see such neat stuff, and then you see sad stuff.
yeah,
I
you
know.
drive through town like Sparta,
Oh,
and you think, next time you come through, everything will be rotted down.
Yeah. Well, and when that little hospital closed, I was over in Cody, I tried. Because that was the one thing in that whole thing.
Okay.
Everything's sitting around the hospital.
Mr. Adkins, good morning, sir.
Morning.
Hi, Chief Atkins.
We're staff. We'll come.
Good Atkins, I'll come down.
I need a hand to stay officer roll out.
I met you somewhere in the past.
I get around, so there's no telling. You'll walk my hand, but I'm ready to go down to the farm program.
You kind of there for the duration.
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities of where we're running.
So good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Billy Kunkel. I'm the deputy director.
I met you, Billy.
We have met before. Just making sure.
Who's this?
This would be my IT solution.
Oh,
My
IT.
son, Colin Kunkel.
Good to meet you.
And Aaron Bollinger.
Hi.
I've got your emails.
Yes, so nice to meet you. Welcome. Come on in.
And Katie Hamilton.
Ah.
Business operations.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you.
So, welcome to your first meeting. I hope we make it, well, I'm not going to say eventful, but
Well, I hope it'll be great. I'm looking forward to the service.
yeah, awesome.
Bring you down there.
You can sit wherever, but I'm
He
trying to
sits
include you in some bits.
We travel.
Somewhere like you.
Then we're then, we have dinner right here from the office.
coming across the YouTube.
So my 2 weeks will start today. And so I wanted to wait until I could be in the office with you when you come down and.
What's it coming in through? Yeah, awesome.
No, you can sit wherever.
Okay. So we're streaming the meeting on YouTube. We don't have any microphones on for the sound to be going in. Okay, but this is the YouTube of that. Can I turn it off?
If you have the input from the microphones on the system, then you can just turn the microphone off.
But that's what I thought. Okay, where'd I go?
To the Zoom meeting. Wait, no, it's not from the Zoom meeting because we have the microphone input on those.
Right.
So what is it coming from?
That's why I have you here.
I'm only useful if I know what's happening.
Okay, is there a general thing just for the computer for that?
Yeah, with the microphone settings.
It's safe for me to sit next to you.
Yes.
Input, right?
I said to tell you hello, and that you're the only one on the planet that she allows to call her Pat.
For the input, it should be.
Testing 2, 3, 4. Hello? I need this to not work right now.
Go to Zoom meeting. All right, so turn your microphone on.
Hello, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that worked. Hello, 2, 3, 4.
You're not getting picked up through the microphone in there.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we did earlier. What's changed, buddy? I need an
I'm
answer
guessing
like
the
quickly.
microphone settings within the Zoom meeting.
Zoom. Preferences. Audio.
Audio is set to Sena system. Built in.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now it's working.
Yeah, but is it coming through
Test 2, 3, 4.
this, or is it coming through that? Because that's just the built-in microphone.
Go down there and tell me very quickly.
That's where I did this. I figured you would be the best that we have across the whole year together. Technology. This
So it might have been doing that before. We didn't know it.
Yeah, that could be a thing.
Crap. Okay, then we need to hurry up and do it the other way, like quickly.
And all the documents that you're gonna down to
How did we have it?
I truly thought before that we had done
So.
because it was the
It was working before.
because you used the got to hook to this. I need to hook that and put the speaker up right there and put it facing.
When Kim has her course, she'll put it on her website, send me the link and
Turn this on and pick it up. I'm gonna go grab the speaker.
Like quickly, but it starts in 8 minutes.
And if you get locked, here's all your passwords.
Hi, how are
Oh, right here? Okay.
Two technology.
Okay.
So I have 14 and. We trust the Courtney.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I want to turn off the speaker on this. The microphone. One, two, three, four. Okay. Good there. Okay. Oh, I just need to make sure that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, that seems to work. Let me make sure this still.
Good, busy?
Hey, you doing?
You got a meeting? Do what?
That's your dad.
We do. Patsy retired in March.
You might even read out. Let me ask Riley. And it's not over the screen.
She's from
It's nice to-
behavioral health background.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He is, he used to be a.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
Sound. I don't have sound right there.
Change the output within your system settings.
This is Melissa. You can actually start it.
Yeah, please do. Hi, Melissa. Billy.
It's Melissa, and she is got the mapping report.
She's a
Okay.
guru.
She's gonna
She's
need a
like
real
a
connection.
guru.
I like it.
Billy, you got Lisa Smith's email address.
Yes, sir.
Would you send her a link? She wants to join in via Zoom.
She's already on.
Really, are you like you're running some kind of communication?
I'm absolutely working on it. Sorry, how you doing today?
Good to see you, man.
Sorry, I'm a little.
All right, I'll leave you.
yeah,
We've been
give me
here
a few
an hour and
minutes.
half, and we're still working on
I'll leave you
it. I
alone.
guess this is why they
Okay.
have IT
I guess so, yeah.
The system sound setting for the computer is heading straight through the speaker and coming out.
Okay. So, all right.
Okay, so my issue is I need to be able to project this.
Okay. Can we put it on a flash drive?
Now it's on the internet.
Yeah, we can just.
Okay. Can I have the website?
It's a family affair.
Yeah, I
again.
think we can do it that way.
He's got his team.
It's
Right.
dorymaps.rcis.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. Okay. How's your
I'm
day
actually going
today?
to run to the restroom real quick.
Are you good with your 5-minute video clip?
Yes. Yes. Just
So
tell
let's
me
plan
when.
to do that. So
Okay.
Okay. Let's see if time is good, maybe the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking.
5 minutes.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's what it is. This is scheduled, this is, has an organized weekend. So that's pretty much. If we don't want Do you see his saying? Yeah. Came up on that. Driver had had a medical emergency. circulating around on the internet.
I don't know. I've never really used Apple. Is it just at the bottom?
Okay. Output. Okay. We want the output for the computer to do that. Okay.
Yes, however, we also need this to be hooked up to there, so people within the Zoom meeting can go through there. So head into the Zoom meeting, hit the output for the Zoom meeting specifically, and then set it to this. Does that make sense?
Audio. Output for that is that, right?
However, that means that they won't
What
be
about
coming over the loudspeakers, they'll be coming over this. Does that make sense?
Okay, hang on. Let me think about this. Okay. I don't need, I'm okay with the audio for Zoom coming across this. I just want to make sure that the microphones, us talking, goes across that. So let's leave it like this. Let me see this.
Yeah, they should work that way still.
Hey, Lisa, can you hear me?
You're good?
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
All right, and then it should be smooth sailing from here. Should. We got the audio set up, we got the microphones, and as long as we can hear everyone within the Zoom meeting, then we should be good. And if you have the output up to those speakers, then everyone should be fine. In theory.
We did.
Okay, so let's do this again.
Meetings.
It's different. I mean, it's like Jay. Are you
Okay, okay. Okay, participants, I got 11 participants on. Reed, Sharon Neeb, Scott Lewis, Kelly Roker, Mo Schmidt, Gina Solomon, Mag, Dr. Smith, Brian Doherty. I have not seen Vic yet, man. Okay, everybody on the YouTube link, give us just a few minutes. We're getting everyone settled in and we'll get started. Okay, Colin, I need, is it a long address?
No. Story maps,
STORY
MAPS
MAPS
dot
.ARCG
ARCGIS
IS
.com.
.com.
And that should probably do it. And then I'll have to sign in.
Okay.
there a third drive? Because I actually do have an Excel sheet I'd like to be able to access as well. Is there a thumb drive? Because I have an Excel sheet.
I do. Yeah.
I forgot about that part.
This has my, yeah.
That's it for now.
And Sam is in, Sam wants to make sure one or two of them is in.
Admit. Yeah, they don't have it anymore where you can just let everybody come in carte blanche. So oh, the microphones are off. It's still coming in.
The only thing I can think of is
But I don't know what to do. What you do.
figure out where the microphone on it is.
Okay.
Thank you for arming me with. I know you told me something about it, but then we didn't really.
I thought you were worried about.
I think it would be coming through if the microphone's fully off.
It is. I don't know. I'm not that worried about it.
Probably letting mine.
The microphone's turned off.
So, yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is the computer.
So the number will be
Cool. We'll work on it later. Yes, ma'am. Ready when you are.
You're gonna be.
I'll be covered.
Yeah.
So those of us that are on the dirt road.
But I just want to make sure that it was gonna be for.
Yes, and you have to remember that you have power. It's all on the bottom. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Give me 1 minute.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to see if this will work.
All right. Yeah. Give me just 1 moment. Then yes, sir. Give me 30 seconds. Let me grab something real quick.
Yes, and just in case you, I know I've got several other meetings that are on, but, send it to me and I'll let you schedule and see if I can have
Yes, sir. It's working. Give me just 1 second. Just let me get everything turned on. Just have to do one more thing here on my computer. Okay, Dr. Ashley, go. Dr. Ashley, go ahead. You're good. Okay. Call it was. You're not coming across. Dr. Ashley D.
His volume's turned all the way up.
Go ahead, Dr. Ashley. Is your microphone on, sir?
He's speaking very quietly.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's me. It'll do. Yeah, it's on. You're just gonna have to, yeah. There you go. There you go. Let me turn you up there.
Yes, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, sir. There you go.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And it is a bit strange. We don't get to see each other very often, but it's good to actually be back in the room in a real meeting again with my colleagues. So thanks everyone for being here. It's a little awkward. I apologize to the audience, the folks in the gallery here. I guess this is the gallery. You're up above looking down. So if we don't acknowledge you or just maybe holler at us, I can't see you waving. And we'll try to get everybody in the game at the appropriate time. With that being said, we do have the first order of business. Well, I guess I should call us the quorum first. So we have quorum, Aaron, I think I heard you say.
Yes, sir, we have 7 of 9.
7 of 9, and you said Dr. Smith is on the phone? Excellent, okay. Jay, if we lose you or something with our technology, just text one of us, let us know you're out there. We're having technical difficulties, so we'll make sure you can stay connected.
Roger that.
Thank you, Jay. At this time, we do have 2 new members to introduce to the group. So to my right here, James or Jim Atkins Jr. is the director of South Star EMS. South Star EMS provides emergency and non-emergency medical transportation service for Richmond, Aiken, McCormick, Columbia, Edgefield, and Duffy counties. So I had not met Jim until just a few minutes ago, but welcome to the commission. Glad you're here. And our other appointee is Dr. Michelle Wallace, Senior Vice President and Chief of Clinical Operations, Grady Memorial Hospital. As you know, Grady is an ACS Verified Level 1 Trauma Center and ABA Verified Burn Center. Grady owns and operates Grady EMS, providing 911 services to the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, as well as 16 other counties across Georgia. And I know that because I see your ambulance come in and bring in folks at my trauma center in Macon, Georgia. So welcome to the commission. As I was telling both members earlier, we will find plenty of work for you to do. So introductory meeting will be live. Great work. Okay. As far as actually, let's go ahead and approve the minutes. Is there, everyone's got the minutes. Did anyone find any, or I guess actually before I do that, can I get a motion to accept the minutes? Second? I second. Okay, open for discussions. Any corrections or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Aaron, that minutes passed as stands. As far as my chairman's report, it's not too much of a long report since with COVID, things that a lot of things have been really limited or shut down as far as meeting wise. But we did have a great call just, I think it was Tuesday by Teams with all the trauma medical directors and trauma program managers and our Georgia Quality Improvement Program folks, which is really all those people. Level 1 centers, level 4 centers are represented. And Dr. Dente is our TQIP physician champion. What we did was basically just try to hit the reset button. There's been a lot of great work that's come out of that committee, that group. Everyone in the room here is basically participated in that work. And a lot of quality initiatives. We've not only improved, I think, the care at our trauma centers, but we've also documented and published what we've done and helped other states as well. But at this time, Kara, who was the director over that program, moved on to Boston, and Gina Solomon has taken over the reins and will be the new director, and be working closely with that group. And it was an introduction for her as well as the whole group as far as finding out what our needs are now. We've sort of reached the max of what we think we can do with the resources we have. And we really want to go to the next level like Michigan has, and really give some risk-adjusted assessment to our centers and take on some quality initiatives that for the whole state. Not that we haven't done that, but we just want to continue to grow and be more sophisticated. And so this was a time Dr. Dente presented a good plan moving forward that incorporates everyone. We want to bring in the level 3s and level 4 trauma centers. They're already there, but we want to do some things specifically for them that they obviously have different needs, different quality needs and metrics that they need to help them as compared to the 1s and 2s. So through that group, I think we'll be able to work all that out. There'll be a survey coming out as there's been a lot of turnover. We've been doing this for several years now, and just as you think you have everybody online and they understand the T-QUIP reports and how to do drill downs, people move on, which is part of the game. So Dr. Dente is going to send out a survey, and we really want everyone to be honest with the surveys. Like I told folks on the call, if you have no idea what T-QUIP even stands for, you're new at your job, that's okay. We want you to just say that. Gina Solomon will be in touch with you and provide education as well as Liz. And we want everyone to be included and to understand, what to do and what your needs are. If there's burdensome needs or barriers that are affecting your ability to participate, we want to know that, because our job as a commission is to help those folks wherever they are, 1 through 4, overcome those barriers and be able to participate. So that'll be coming out, and so I think it was a good time to reset and start moving forward and really going to the next level, is what I should say. So that concludes my chairman's report. I have one other. Well, it concludes my report, but I've got one other thing I really need to address here. And this is something that's going to be fun that I know people will be signing up for. It's the bylaws. So it's that time again, guys. As a commission, we need to look back at our bylaws and make sure that they're up to date and there's not anything that's obsolete, and we just need to tune them up. So that's too much to obviously do at a commission meeting like this. But what we need to do is form just an ad hoc subcommittee that will just last for about 3 months until our next meeting. And what I'd like to do is assign 2 commission members working with Liz Atkins to look at the bylaws, see if they're appropriate, make recommendations, and then get that back out to the commission before the meeting so we can study them. And then at the next commission meetings, we'll either approve the bylaws as they stand or make our adjustments. So could I get volunteers, 2 volunteers that would be willing to do this with Liz?
Don't jump like you want.
Don't everybody volunteer at once.
Rolling opportunity. I will.
Okay, Michelle, there's 1. Don't make me pick somebody.
Well, I'm ready to do that, all right.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll have a fresh set of eyes. How about that with Liz? I hate to say old set of eyes. But
I'll wear that badge well, it's fine.
a seasoned set of eyes with 4 new eyes. So that'll be interesting to see how it comes out. So, all right, thank you guys for jumping on that. That's not a fun thing, but it's something every institution has to do to stay up to date. Bylaws are very important. Okay. Liz, I'll turn it over to you for the executive director's report.
Turn it over to me. Are you good, Billy?
Yes.
A few things to go over. I'm going to try to keep my report short because you'll notice that on the agenda, we have Nita Ham from the Office of Rural Health here with us, as well as Dr. Melissa B. Miller for 2 special presentations that are both sort of tied together. But I would like to announce that the timing is great for Nita to be with us today, as today is Rural Health Day across the nation. So we want to recognize those very special partnerships that enable us to sort of infiltrate our influence and our ability to improve care throughout the rural areas, because that has been a challenge and it is a very important strategic priority of the governor. So we want to make sure that we certainly are tied into that. And just a few other updates before we walk through some of the other items in your packets. To echo Dr. Ashley, I am so excited to have Gina Solomon joining us. I think this is going to be really give us the opportunity to take the collaborative to the next level. So we look forward to, and it's just a natural partnership with myself and the relationship that I have with Renee and Marie and Gina, so well known to the system. I think we can really team up to make a huge impact across the system. And then a couple other updates since our last meeting. I just want to give a huge shout out. I got to go down to Callaway Gardens and present at the GEMSA leadership course. It was phenomenal. I got there early enough to listen to some of the lectures. They were great and interactive. Some of the like role playing and case-based scenarios. I had so much fun, and they welcomed me in the conversation. So I love that sort of thing. I like Michelle because I've had the opportunity to have great leadership. I consider myself a lifelong learner. So I look forward. I've already talked to Courtney about wanting to sit in on all of the leadership offerings because I think they're phenomenal. So I think we should all take advantage of those things. In addition, we continue our work with the Governor's Office of Geospatial Informatics Office, is the GIO, otherwise known, to work on creating mapping for our reach so we can really show where our courses are going, who's participating in these things. So what it's going to force us to do is sort of change how we track where folks come from to take our classes. So we'll probably have to come up with better ways to sign people up so we can better track either the agencies that they're participating from or where they live. So again, we can see sort of how far we're reaching. But Billy's working very hard with that group. He's had several test runs with them to give them information, and really Melissa's shaking her head back here too because she knows how important this is. We can really show how well our money is bang for our buck, if you will, for some of the education that we have out there. So in addition to that, we're also working to transition our website to GovHub so that we can kind of have the same look and feel as, and not to mention the protection of the other state agencies from external threats, because that's such a huge priority at the moment. You'll hear later, again, Anita's presentation about our collaboration with the State Office of Rural Health. We look at this as we're just sort of in our infancy of what could be, so I'm really excited about the future of that. September, right after Labor Day, what time is right? We partnered with Office of EMS and Trauma with Renee and Marie to do 7 orientation sessions, so that not just orientation sessions for news centers, but just updates on the quarterly reports, the invoicing, so that we plan to do this annually, so that we can make sure that everybody is on the same page with what the requirements are. And we want to make sure that we're expending our funds because we still have some centers with some outstanding invoices, and we want to tighten up the timeline across all stakeholders to make sure that everybody is invoicing and getting their money timely, and that we're not holding purchase orders every year. So we plan to continue to do that. In addition, Renee and I got to go all the way down northern line to Swainsboro to visit.
They waited till the fall to do that when the maps are not.
That's right. It was strategic, yes.
And the lunch recommendation was great, by the way. That was so great to partner with folks at your facility to hear from them what some of the challenges are. Again, this, we're just learning this. Though I live in a very rural area, I've worked mostly urban, so thank you for opening your facility up to let them share sort of what the challenges are. And we know that what one facility experiences as a challenge, many are often challenged by. So when working with facilities to overcome those barriers, we can really share some of those lessons learned. I think that can be a great opportunity. Not but 3 weeks ago, the governor had an agency heads meeting at the Georgia State Patrol Post 60, which is right behind the Capitol. So we all got together. It's the first time we've been together in a long time, like most groups. Most of those meetings are virtual. But I think it was important for the governor because he's essentially turned over his entire staff. So there's a new deputy COO, Ryan Loke, who we're very familiar with. And I know Ryan's doing a lot of work with Brady Michelle. He's phenomenal. So we will report up through Ryan now. So I'm really excited. My monthly meetings will resume with Ryan right after the Thanksgiving holiday. And then just a shout out to Northeast Georgia Region 2. Their symposium was phenomenal. Through that symposium, thank you, Jesse. I got Colonel Stacy Shackelford's email address, and the 5 Things program, Courtney actually has a name, and it's called March Pause. The military has already done this, so we want to try to partner with Colonel Shackelford to see if, since this program, what she described sounds so familiar to the 5 things, it's really about airway hemorrhage control, volume repletion, that we can use the military's evidence to sort of put that behind this program, and why not just call it the same thing? If it's already out there in the literature, let's just call it the same thing. Plus March Pause is kind of great. So really looking forward to that. And then right before the last EMS subcommittee meeting, David Newton and I and Renee and Regina and Courtney, since we're all there for the EMS subcommittee anyway, we formed sort of a little work group that will meet prior to the EMS subcommittee meetings to sort of talk about what the stack looks like moving forward. Remember, we talked about that, and there was a rolling reg out there that's been since pulled back, and we're going to kind of move forward together, developing what that will look like in the future. So those are kind of my major updates. You'll see in your packet after the bylaws that Dr. Wallace and Mr. Hekins graciously agreed to review. The 2 appointment letters for both of them are in there for both Army members. And then I've included, since our August meeting, as you know, I had to resubmit our strategic plan with updates. And so under the strategic plan tab, I've included a summary of just some minor changes that were made. And mostly it was language cleanup. But one of the things that I did do, because the governor, remember, is very metrics based, he wants to see you measuring what you have. Every objective has to be measurable. So rather than having an XY format, which is very hard to predict what changes might be, this was basically regarding our open purchase orders and things like that, that we wanted to reduce. Instead of doing it XY, we just called it a % reduction, 80, and I felt like that would be a little bit easier for us to reflect some of the changes that way. And then if you recall, a while back, we talked about not expanding the budget subcommittee because we felt like we had the right number of folks at the table. Certainly all of the budget items come back to the full commission for approval, but it's just a little bit easier having a small, essentially the group. So the whole strategic plan is included there, but again, the major changes to it are summarized on the first page. And then you'll see the next tab is entitled reporting tools. So what we thought would be helpful to do, I think when I looked back through the same minutes prior to my time, I had seen previously that there were subcommittee meeting minutes, which this group is a very busy professional training coach. They don't have time to pour over meeting minutes from their subcommittees, but you have a need to understand what's happening in those subcommittees. So what I'm going to ask the chairs to do is to fill out this, and I'll certainly help facilitate this with the chairs, obviously, because again, the chairs are busy as well, but to just give us a little summary of what's happening. You may have had 1 meeting between commission meetings, you may have had 3 meetings, depending on what's going on in your subcommittee. So we can track your tasks, and more importantly, this form asks for you to tie that back to the strategic plan where applicable. So it might not always be applicable. Some groups, like Dr. Ashley last meeting here, appointed the data subcommittee to reconvene to look at some of the data that has come out of the state office that they've shared with us. So that's just kind of a template. I put it in there because I welcome your feedback. I would love if you have ideas about how to make that form better, please feel free to share with me. If not, we will go with that and we'll just see how that goes for the next meeting, and you all can provide feedback once it's actually live. And then I've included a summary of super speeder revenue. Katie has done a great job with this. One of the things that we wanted to look at was how is COVID impacting super speeder revenue? And indeed, people are still speeding. So, paid into the super speeder revenue, but so the first page gives you the FY20 versus FY21 comparison. We're still early in the year. You can see the little dip, but if you look at the next page, Katie has captured it by calendar year 2019 versus 2020 because COVID really impacted us pretty early on, right around that March time frame where we saw that little dip. But if you look at calendar year 2019, the blue line, we really weren't that far under where we were the year prior, but we have just, you can see we just experienced in September a little dip. Now, it looks like that's coming back up again, so we'll have to really keep our eye on that. But since that is sort of our revenue stream, even though it's not dedicated revenue, but we use that story, Dr. Ashley and I, when we go up under the dome and say, hey, we got our 23 million and we want it. If there's not 23 million there to be added, then we got to be very mindful about what we're asking for.
Is your battery down? Battery down.
Okay, so that is super speeder revenue. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
In that bag down there next to the under the table on the right hand side, there's no batteries. Text me. Text me. There's one battery. Yes.
Probably going to be
The maroon bag under the table.
I agree with you, Dr. Ashley. I think if you look at it, and this is one of the new things that Katie's agreed to do for us, is to graph it so that we can see year over year what's happening. And what we have, and again, I don't want to make your packets too big, but Katie's actually looked at this year over year. So we can present that. Usually what we do is at the end of the year kind of present a summary of what the year total looks like with compared to other years. And again, year over year, it's gradually increasing. It's not decreasing. I just think this year, given what's going on, we just need to be very mindful of it because there's been so much sort of trepidation about what will happen at amended budget time. What will happen at amended budget time, and will we get money? Will we not get money? The only other thing, Dr. Medeiros will talk about this in her budget subcommittee update, but the $1 million of Senator Burke's, we did offer to give some of that back, but we wanted to retain some of it, and they did indeed agree. I sent an email out to the group to share with you that they did agree that they would let us still have $300,000 of that. So, you're in good way to us right now. Change momentarily.
that concludes your report.
That's my report. I'm happy to introduce Ms. Meeting since I know her so well.
Let me just, before you do that, I just like to comment, since it is rural health week, I would like to acknowledge Courtney. There's no greater advocate for rural for your whole career has been focused on it. So during this week, we'd like to acknowledge all your work. So, I'll kick it back to Leah.
Sure. She's over my shoulder, so that makes it a little awkward. Sorry. Here, I'll be mobile. So Nita and I have a long relationship of working together through various course development, somewhat like ATLS, I mean, most is on, but Nita has a long history in EMS. And she now works for the State Office of Rural Health, and leveraging that, I knew her in that role and knew her prior. I knew that we were trying to see how we could make a difference in rural Georgia. Reached out to her to start a conversation about what could that look like, contribute partner. And I think it's been a great, so far, just again, it's in its infancy, but a great partnership. And so, Nita, I'll let you explain exactly your presentation goes to the State Office of Rural Health, so you can explain to them what your role is too.
Okay, I will. And are you okay with me just presenting from here?
Absolutely.
Or would you rather I go to the podium? I would be more comfortable here too. So I won't wander around so much.
You need the microphone.
I may. Thank you. Great, thanks. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And it is very special since today is National Oral Health Day that I get to present to you on this particular day. So as Liz said, I've been around the state for a long time. I've worked with a lot of you in various capacities, and I even was actually an instructor here at the training center for 10 years. So I am fortunate now to be working for the Georgia State Office of Rural Health, and I really love this, and I'm so excited to get to tell you a little bit about what we do. So,
The bottom one?
so this is our obligatory mission statement slide that I'm required to always put in our presentation. So I'll move on to what we're going to talk about. As Liz mentioned, we have chatted a little bit about what to discuss here in this particular group. So we kind of narrowed it down to these 4 things. One is just introducing the State Office of Rural Health to you guys and letting you know a little bit about what we do. And then talk about successes and challenges that our office, and specifically I have encountered in working with rural communities, and also talking a little bit about future directions and projects that SOAR has already identified. And my favorite part of this is how can we partner with you guys and what can we do together to support our rural communities. So our primary mission at the State Office of Rural Health is really just to improve access to health care for our rural citizens and reduce health disparities in these very diverse populations. So this is something that when I started working for the State Office of Rural Health, I think this type of map made a bigger impact on me than anything, because I am an Atlanta girl. I came out of Atlanta, I was familiar with Atlanta, and I really did not know much about the rest of the state. I had no idea that so much of Georgia is actually defined as rural. So based on 2017 legislative changes in the definition, rural is defined as a county that's having a population of less than 50,000. So as you can see, 120 out of our 159 counties are actually defined as rural. So our office provides a lot of support to a lot of communities in the state. And I have traveled to almost all of these rural counties, and there was a discussion earlier about some of the neat things that you see in these little rural towns, and it really is a privilege for us to be able to work with these rural communities. A little bit about what we do. We are a division of the Department of Community Health, and we actually came to be as the State Office of Rural Health in 1999. And it was decided at that point that we should be located the State Office of Rural Health should actually be located in a rural community. So our office is in Cordele, which is in Crisp County. Again, that's a rural county. And as I mentioned, our mission is to improve access to health care for these folks living in our rural counties. Basically, in a nutshell, we actually work with about 69 small rural and critical access hospitals. We work with 82 rural health clinics. We have 6 migratory and seasonal agricultural worker health clinics that we support. And then we work with 35 federally qualified health centers that have a total of 276 clinic sites. We have recently gotten a new executive director. A lot of you may know Patsy Whaley, who retired in March. And we have brought on a new executive director in May. His name is Stephen Register. And he is a joy to work with. We're having to catch him up to speed because he he's never worked for the state. He also didn't know who the State Office of Rural Health was when we brought him on board, but he's a quick study and we're really enjoying working with him. And then that's his assistant, Cheryl McCoy. She has been there through all 4 of the executive directors that the SOAR office has had. So she's a great historian for us. As far as our structure, we have 4 program sections. There is the SOAR program section, hospital services, primary care office, and the Georgia Farm Worker Health Program. Those are our 4 sections. Each section has a director and support staff, and each section manages both federal and state grants. So this is a list of the federal grants that we manage. We have the HRSA SOAR grant, the Small Rural Hospital Improvement Program grant, which is lovingly referred to as SHIP. Also the Medicare Rural Hospital Flexibility Program, which we refer to as FLEX. We have the HRSA Primary Care Office Cooperative Agreement, and we also have the Health Center Cluster Grant, which is where our farm worker program sits. And we also manage the USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine Program Grant. Now, all of those HRSA grants are are core primary grants that only our office manages. So we do not compete with anyone else in the state for those grants. Those are designated by the governor as our SOAR manages those grants for the state of Georgia. We also we do a few other things. Maybe. You go to the next slide.
Sure.
So in addition to managing these federal grants,
I think. Here. Okay, there we go.
We also are responsible for the health professional shortage designation or our HPSA designations. Our analyst in our office is the one who makes all those determinations. And for those of you who may be familiar with that, that actually is the foundation for a lot of funding in the state, specific to what your HPSA designation is. We manage the J-1 visa waiver program, so those applications come into our office for review and approval. And those of you with that work with residency programs are probably familiar with that. We have the National Health Service Corps Loan Repayment Program and the 3R Net, which is the Rural Recruitment and Retention Network. So those are also managed in our office. And then this is a list of a lot of our state-funded grant programs. And I stopped when I got to the end of the slide because I just didn't have any more room. But as you can see, we manage quite a lot of state-funded grant programs, and they're very diverse. One of the things that a lot of people hear a lot about is the Rural Hospital Stabilization Grant Program, which was stood up in 2015 by Governor Deal, and that was because we were having, this was in the middle of the rural hospital closure crisis, and between 2010 and 14, Georgia actually led the country in rural hospital closures. So that's a very big, high-profile program. We also have, as you can see on the list, quite a lot of other grant programs with a lot of diversity in the funding and the projects that we actually manage in our office. So just to give you a little idea of what we do on a day-to-day basis, it's basically managing those grant programs. So just for FY20, for example, we started out FY20 with 55 core grants and contracts, and we manage all of those from start to finish. So it's assembling the initial grant documents. Some of our grants are direct awards. Other grants are awarded through an application process. We manage those. And then, so we have the front end management, the back end management, and then we manage the grant projects with our grantees throughout the funding period. So there's quarterly invoices and reporting, data collection, and pretty much every day we're working with our grantees in managing the activities within those grant programs. So it really actually does keep us very busy. When the pandemic hit, we went from our 55 core grants to adding another 184 federal and state grants that were COVID-related support. And so at the end of FY20, which was June 30, 2020, we had actually stood up a total of 239 federal and state grants and managed from our little office in Cordele over $33.4 million in grant funding. And while we ramped up because of the pandemic with all the additional grants that we had to put together, we are still very comfortable in managing grants and a good bit of funding that comes through our office for such a little tiny insignificant facility. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is, and I said that one of the things that would be good to discuss is
That's me, 1 second.
is working with rural communities. And so what I wanted to do right now is kind of go off the grid, away from the PowerPoint presentation. And my reason for that is because I have to have the PowerPoint approved through GCH before I can present it in public. And there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that I didn't want to put in writing. So for that reason, I transition away to this document. Hey, does he have it? It says challenges. Yes, as we say, or as I've noted up here, when I started working with rural communities, it was an extremely eye-opening experience. And keep in mind, I came along when the rural hospital closures was this huge crisis. And so I came into this organization, all I'm hearing on a day-to-day basis is money issues, money problems. Hospitals are closing because they don't have the money. Doors open, it was money, money, money. And then I walk into a job where we actually have money to give away. I thought I'm like the Ed McMahon of rural healthcare because I'm gonna show up at these hospitals with my big old check and they're just gonna cry happy tears and scream joyfully. Yes, and it wasn't quite that way. There were a lot of unexpected challenges that I encountered in starting to work with rural hospitals and rural communities. Before I go any farther though, I want to make this disclaimer. There are a lot of hospitals that we work with that are wonderful grantees, wonderful partners, and they do wonderful things with that funding. And there are many hospitals that have publicly admitted that it was the funding from the State Office of Rural Health that actually saved their hospitals and prevented their doors from closing. So I don't want to let this discussion overshadow the fact that we have a lot of great and grateful hospital partners in rural communities that we work with. But in speaking to the challenges that that I discovered when I started working with these hospitals, and I think that's a Word document that has challenges.
It's right after your PowerPoint.
Yeah. So in trying to sort of decide what to say and how to say it for this particular presentation, I looked at maybe putting my thoughts into a few different buckets. And so I identified one bucket as documented challenges that rural hospitals across the country basically have. And I've added a few things on this list that we can talk about. The second bucket is challenges that I personally encountered in working with rural hospitals. So in Georgia. So again, some of the things that I've written up here could be taken certainly out of context without the benefit of this conversation. So I don't want anyone to be offended, but I did try to throw a few things up there to trigger a conversation. So in looking at just some overall problems that are going on with rural hospitals across the country, I listed a few things that we encountered, and number one is, as I already mentioned, money. Another problem that we see a lot in these rural hospitals, which certainly impacts the ability to work with hospitals for projects and funding, is CEO turnover, because that occurs quite frequently in these small communities. And a lot of times to fix that, these communities will bring in either a management company or maybe merge with a larger organization. And that does not always solve the problem. It may provide a little stay of execution, but sometimes it's not always the answer, because most of these larger systems do come in knowing that this hospital is not profitable, but sometimes the hospital ends up closing anyway because the larger system realizes it's not something that they can really fix. And then there's across the country we have shortages, staffing shortages, whether it's providers, especially primary care providers, whether it's advanced practice providers and nurses. There's just lots and lots of shortages. Salaries are a huge issue because the smaller communities just cannot compete with the larger communities, and very often, the nurses or the other healthcare staff will come in and get trained, and then they'll move on to a larger market where they can make more money. So there's a lot of turnover from the top at the CEO level all the way down in these hospitals, which certainly creates a challenge for us when we're working with them. So moving to specifically some of those challenges that I encountered when I started working with these rural hospitals. I came from Atlanta. I moved from Atlanta into a rural community. And so one of the big challenges that I encountered, and Courtney knows this well, is that I was looked at as Atlanta. Sometimes they never called me Nita, they just said Atlanta's here. Because rural communities do have a little bit of a challenge working with folks that come from the big city, because they feel like maybe they don't quite understand some of the challenges of rural communities, and maybe they don't understand quite so much how rural communities work on a day-to-day basis. And I have to say they were right, because I had the privilege of learning about rural life when I actually moved into a rural community. But I also had the benefit of being able to compare the things that I was used to and the resources I was used to in Atlanta and the larger cities, and then be able to see some of those challenges firsthand. And it works both ways. So right away, I realized that sometimes the hospital boards or the county commissions, depending on their relationship with the hospital, can be a challenge. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We can come back and talk about any of these specific, but I just kind of want to run through the list. Also, the big thing is a lot of these hospitals are just trying to make payroll. they don't see what's down the road in a 2-year or 5-year plan. They don't see how the data that we bring to them when we've got we're real excited about a project we may be able to fund. They don't necessarily see how that is going to help them 2 years down the road when they just aren't sure whether they can even make it through the next payroll. So they sometimes don't actually see and value the information that we bring to them in the same way that we see it when we're stepping in to offer some assistance. So also staff, those reliable staff that we would like to work with on these projects are wearing about 10 other hats. And so very often they don't see you as someone who's their friend. They see you as someone who's bringing them more work to do. And that's a big challenge too when you're trying to ask these hospitals who are already, the staff is already overloaded and underfunded to take on more projects. Some other things that we've noticed, especially learned through the Rural Hospital Stabilization Program, is that a lot of times there's a lack of communication between the hospitals and even their own community. A lot of people look at these rural hospitals as Band-Aid stations and want to go outside of their community. They're not necessarily interested in using those local facilities. And a lot of that may be marketing challenges because we do have, our hospitals that have been in these communities for so long, they've always been there, and they really don't think about marketing because there's not 4 or 5 other competing hospitals in their county. So they're really not thinking about marketing strategies. And that is something that a lot of rural hospitals need to embrace because it's not just about competition between them and another hospital. It's about making sure the community knows what you do and what you do well and what kind of services you can provide, as well as listening to the community about what kind of services are needed. So marketing is also a challenge with a lot of our rural hospitals. So I made the comment, I think it's on the next page, that suspicious nature as far as their perceiving outsiders. And again, I don't mean to say this in a way that's derogatory at all. It's just that, if you didn't grow up in that community, Courtney, you can back me up. They're sometimes a little bit suspicious of your motives. So they feel like maybe you don't understand their challenges. And like I said, I'm here to acknowledge that it is a different world, and sometimes we actually don't understand those challenges. The other thing that I struggled with initially is small communities are very closely connected, and sometimes through marriage, children, nieces and nephews, and I moved from a different state to Atlanta. It was never a possibility even that I was going to run into somebody I knew, and that was a huge difference for me. I learned quickly to be careful what you're talking about in a room because more than likely somebody's related to whoever you're talking about. And so that can sometimes be a barrier when you're looking at decision making for the bigger picture. Sometimes the family connection and closeness of the communities make, there's an emotional variable in there that sometimes affects decision making that may not be there in some of the larger cities. Something else that I learned, and this is the Ed McMahon component, is that sometimes having money and throwing money at a problem really doesn't matter to these folks because they don't necessarily see your data, your project idea, and your funding as a good thing. They see it as more work that they have to do. And so that's been my biggest challenge is awarding our grantees these funds and then following up with them to make sure they're using them and that they're getting this money, because a lot of times the person who is handed the project to manage may, again, have so many other things going on or may not necessarily value the project the way we do or the way the CEO does. And it is more of a struggle than I ever anticipated it would be in working with some of these hospitals. So throwing money at the problem isn't always the answer, and then equally distributing money is a challenge too, because if the hospital doesn't want it, doesn't value it, and I say hospital, but I'm talking about medical community in general, because we do work with entities other than hospitals, but very often if they don't see the need and they're not interested in the project, then you can't just divvy it up equally between 10 hospitals, because there only may be 2 of those 10 hospitals that actually want to participate and want to use the funding for the purpose that we're offering. So that's another challenge too. And again, sometimes the responsibility of managing these grants is handed off to somebody that doesn't understand the bigger picture, doesn't see the value in it, and it becomes a box to check, not necessarily something that needs to be, accurate. The reporting needs to be accurate. Our grants are not gifts, but they're not loans. People don't have to pay them back. It's just that when we give them a grant, we do want something in exchange, and that's typically information. So we want reports, we want data, we want information, and that sometimes is just a little bit more than some of these hospitals have the capacity to manage. So that does become a problem. I have to say, I respect a community that says, we don't want this. If you're offering it to us, we really don't want it because we don't have the capacity to manage it. That to me is an easier response than taking on a project and then struggling in getting that project to be managed the way that it should be, so that we can get the outcome and the data that we're looking for. It doesn't matter. I'm up for anything.
This is really great as far as this observation. You sit here reading through these nationally as well as your own personal observations. I think it was right on, and I'm not aware of all of that. Here's a first experience. So have you figured out a way of solution to actually overcome some of these barriers? I mean, it's amazing that you've got to figure it out, but the next step would be if you crack the nut on how to solve this problem.
A lot of it boils down to this last box, which is really just having a relationship with these communities. And it's not necessarily reaching out to a particular position. Sometimes it's reaching out to a person you've befriended in the hospital, even if that person is an administrative assistant or a tech or someone that actually can get your foot in the door and help you work with these communities. But that is something where I feel like our office is beneficial to anyone who wants to get in and work with rural communities, is because we have those connections, and we built a relationship, and we have, there's a trust between the State Office of Rural Health and these rural communities. So that's one of the things that we have found, is that if we have an idea, then we try to tailor those ideas so that the entity can see how this benefits them. A lot of times they're not interested in looking at the data on the big picture or national, industry standards. They really want to know, how is this going to impact us? And the more immediate they can see results, the better they are. So a lot of times it's just who you talk to and how you present yourself, or you present an idea and funding opportunities, because you need to make sure that they can embrace it as something that directly benefits them and their community. And they don't see you as the big guy coming in with some idea that they don't understand. And so that's where we really come in handy, is making those connections. People don't look at me and say, oh, it's Atlanta anymore. Now they say, oh, it's State Office of Rural Health. So I've kind of become one of them and realized the value and the importance of having those strong relationships with those folks inside the hospital. And like I said, sometimes it's not just being good buds with the CEO, because they are very often not there very long. So local champions are also really important. We need to have those, especially physicians and other community leaders that can help us ensure the community understands how important these kind of things can be. And that's really been our biggest successes in working with communities, is that we let them know what we're bringing, even if it comes with a lot of data and a bunch of national studies. What we're bringing to you is going to help you. And if we can show some short-term benefit, as well as looking at how this is going to move the needle and looking at some long-term benefit, that's even better. But that's been the big challenge, is how do you get your foot in the door? Who do you make friends with? And we've learned when we're working with partners coming out of Atlanta or someone on a national level, if we've got that, if we kind of go in together and we say, it's us from your community and we're bringing a friend with us that we'd like you to listen to, then sometimes that's how we can be more successful in working with these communities and ultimately, improving outcomes in the long run. So that's basically it for that. As you can see, there are a couple of things on here. I wouldn't want this document kind of floating around because I wouldn't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. But and going back to the PowerPoint presentation, that just kind of leads us to where we are right now at the State Office of Rural Health and where we would like to go. And so we are all about making some, expanding our footprint and increasing the number of and the type of projects that we're working on. And I really can't explain why the State Office of Rural Health has not been more involved in funding trauma initiatives in the past. But I am so excited to have the opportunity to talk to you guys because that's really something that we want to do, is to start looking at this data, looking at our communities and see where we can partner together to make a difference. The only, other than our core stuff, we do have, I'm working with the EMSC because we're looking at funding some pediatric readiness programs in FY22. But again, I've got a new and very aggressive executive director. I'm extremely passionate about what I do. And any way that we can work together, we are more than interested in chatting with you guys about what we might be able to do. So that kind of leads to the last slide is what can we do? How can we partner together? Because I would love to be a benefit to you guys. I think what you guys can bring into the rural communities specific to data and programs and anywhere on that continuum, whether it's just initial education for prevention or whether we're looking at how to better manage trauma patients once they've been discharged from a trauma center and then head back to their rural communities where their medical resources are limited. We're here and we're excited about exploring whatever opportunities we may have.
Question. So does the SOAR primarily manage the grants, or are they also the recipients of those state grants?
We are the recipient of the federal grants. And then most of the state funded grants we have are put into our budgets. Some of those funding streams are legislatively directed. It comes into our budgets for us to create the grant and then offer it to the community. Some of those have a designated recipient. Some of them are done as an application process. It just depends on which legislator put the money in the budget and for what. But we actually also work closely with grantees to manage data and design projects. So it's kind of all of the above answer to you. We are the applicant when it comes to our federal grants. We apply for those. We turn that around when we get our state funding in to give someone else a grant, and then we become the grantee, assembling the grants and then working with the grantee to ensure all the deliverables are met.
How many people do we have in the office?
We have a whopping 11 people in our office. So, and we're in this little building behind the pools, which is the place everybody recognizes. They don't even know our building is there. But it's amazing at how much work and how much information that little, non-discrete building actually houses. But we have 11 folks, and that includes our executive director. And those 11 folks are distributed between the 4 sections that I have mentioned.
Some of y'all may not know that the leadership program, a little bit more about a minute, was initially a grant we wrote to the State Office of Health. But the initial grant was to develop curriculum. So we each every year partnered with Russ Tolman, Georgia Southern, Pastor Ware, and the State Office of Health them with all of the state, and then with EMS leaders. Some had hair like mine, some had hair really nobody in this room. And we looked at, for the old guys, what would you want to know? You started this guys. Anyway, we developed PhD folks down there, and then the next year they gave us a grant to do the first course. And since then, the trauma commission has picked up funding for those. And that's one of the things that they like to see, I think, is to develop a program like that becomes system. And had it not been that additional funding. That's the other reason and so the EMS subcommittee focuses a lot on education. Because you go to a rural community and they got a hospital there, and their cash on hand is measured in days or perhaps hours. And you go ask for, I need $1,000 to move it out of the class, you get laughed out of the room. So if we can develop this education programs, take them to the rural communities so they can just drive over and do it, then that is very helpful. And that's when the water rate, and Anita hit us, I'm from Little Georgia, okay? And people call me a redneck, and I said, dang right, I'm proud of it. I'm okay with that. And it is different. When they do look at people, my town is strange. But you think, Anita says, wow, when we for 2 years we met in Johnson County, and I might as well have been from Atlanta. I mean, just a little river between us, but we're all from Atlanta. It's different, it's very rich, and but it's great people.
Two kind of prevailing attitudes I noticed, Courtney, is one, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But a lot of times they don't understand it as broken because they're not looking at research and valuing data. And so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then the second thing is, we'll just do it the way we've always done it. And sometimes those tie together because the way they've always done it leads them to believe nothing's broken. And so changing that mindset in working with some of these communities is a challenge because a lot of times people grow up in that community and really aren't exposed to anything other than the way things are done in their areas. So valuing outsider input is a challenge sometimes.
So one other quick story, several years ago, I was teaching ACLS class in our hospital, and the head of respiratory therapy was one of the students. And she'd been the head of respiratory therapy for probably 5 or 6 years. And what she told me was kind of interesting, that she had never been to an outside in-service in her entire career there. So think about that for just a minute. How much state-of-the-art knowledge do you think that she was going to get from Fort Florida? I was teaching her state-of-the-art ACLS, and they didn't like me because everybody wanted somebody else to check them off. That's who I was. That's one of the issues. How do you learn new techniques if you're not equipped? And that's one of the advantages at home.
And that's it. I am more than happy to ask to talk now, or we can talk later, or you can reach out to me at some point in the future if you decide you want to talk about any of those topics in detail, or just pick some ideas about what we can do together.
When you look at your map, Nita, you realize how many of our farm centers are actually in rural areas, or do think is,
You're gonna see that.
Okay.
We're setting it up so well.
Listen, they can listen to information, they spare some more conversation.
So Liz, how do we take this information and move it forward? Like, what are our next steps from a commission standpoint to be able to provide support since we've done this huge, I've known for a long time, it's a huge gap.
Yeah, I think part of why I wanted Nita to come here is because we have to understand the challenges before we can, and that informs solutions, right? Because I think most of us think, oh, let's just carve out this piece of money, and we couldn't spend $1 million. We're going to be struggling to spend $300,000. To be honest, we are. I mean, we have to figure out how this makes sense. So I don't want to put pressure on our chairman for another subcommittee, because I know we're all busy, but I do think, and maybe this could just start up as a work group of interested individuals to continue my partnership with Anita. Anita and I still have a lot more conversations to have. This is just the very beginning. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and it will evolve, but we just need to make it progress.
I think the data subcommittee might be able to shed some light on this as well.
Yes.
Once we figure out kind of what data we have access to and how that looks across the state. We're in rural areas. So I think we're going to have some opportunities to build work.
And I was just gonna give it to you down there and let you
We
do.
do employ the,
So,
we're able to move forward with Barber
are you good with
metrics,
maps?
and they can
Okay.
drill the data
So
down to
this is the
level.
left
right?
Right.
Well, we know we have problems with data gaps for level
So,
fours, because
Basically, I'll just
as
leave
Nita
the
mentioned,
story.
it's
Okay.
always experiencing
so
an
what do you need
institution.
into? You need into
Under that
this?
story
You can't
map.
measure what's happening in those
Okay.
centers if you don't have the data, so unfortunately, because so many people are wearing different hats. I think there might be some solutions there we could potentially find with some data abstraction and data entry, sort of, what's the word, organized, one asset, maybe a state asset or a
Actually,
contracted asset.
Are you
to
more
try to
comfortable with your
close the
computer?
gaps or something. We just
I
need
mean-
to.
If so, just
have
plug
a
this
look
in.
at it.
I don't know, it looks like that's a big next step for us. I would feel like we're gonna go to the public conference.
There you go.
And work together, because it's really not urban against rural, it's everybody on the commission makes the decision for what kind of call.
Just then the other people at home can't see it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Just take this down. Here, I'm coming. God. No, it's okay. I'm so sorry.
Open up a whole new discussion.
I know where the Excel is.
Okay, I'll just sit right here. Let you be comfortable. Let me get you a
Okay, our
microphone.
next report will be from Dr. Melissa Lee Miller from Augusta. She will be giving us an update on trauma center distribution from 2006 to 2020.
So
And
you
while Dr.
do have
Miller
to talk
said,
directly into
let
this
me tee her
because
up,
it's
if that's
supposed to
okay.
block out ambient.
Perfect.
So this, Dr. B. Miller, first of all, is an
This side
assistant
okay?
professor of criminal justice and
Turn on the
sociology
mic,
at
will
UU. And accordingly, I really don't even remember what our initial project was that we started out on, but somehow.
I had this last presentation you were scared, you were afraid of.
That's it. You
I
scared
remember
me.
that, I remember
You
that.
scared me into this, and I talked you off the ledge too.
I think you'll have to
So
share
we
it
decided
again.
to take a look at this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can make that happen.
You might be not wearing my mask.
And with Renee's help, we got the trauma center
As long as
list
you're not sick, I'm good.
for
No.
each
I'm not
year.
either.
I think I actually have them back to like 96. Renee really chucked me full of data. But, okay, good, Melissa's teed up,
Okay.
so I'm gonna cut it short now that she's teed up. But what we wanted to do is look
Thank you.
pre-commission, commission somewhere around 2007, is that correct, Dr. Ashley? Did I?
07 at the end of the year.
So we looked back at 2004 and we wanted to see over time, what happened with centers moving in and out of the system by level and collectively as an entire system with coverage throughout the state. Keeping in mind that level ones and twos are technically supposed to be set up to provide the definitive care, right? So threes and fours provide that either initial care and some level of specialization at the level threes. But when you look at the level fours, you're gonna see initially nothing. And then you're gonna see what we've termed the addition by subtraction, because we grew by level fours, not because we added a whole lot of level fours, because we actually lost most of all level fours. But centers dropped down to level fours. And that's a big step, right? When we take threes and they drop to fours, because we're losing surgical capability there. So we're losing that immediate ability, right? The differentiating factor between trauma center and non-designated center is the ability to have a surgeon and get definitive operative care immediately. And we've lost that in a lot of areas. So I think this will help inform us. She's ready to go. Okay, take it away, Dr.
Just hit this.
You
Good afternoon.
have to talk really close to your mic, sorry.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
We got it. All right. So Liz and Courtney, you guys are going to be surprised by a couple things I added at 2:00 in the morning, because that's the kind of person I am. So this is adult trauma centers, and we go from 2004 to 2020. This is your current TC map of where our trauma centers are as of the last time Liz gave me an update. So a week ago, maybe? Yeah. Yes. So this is what we look like now. And the dark gray, or the light gray, I guess, area that you see is what we have determined to be an estimated 60-minute commute. So wherever you see, like if you go down to that bottom one, that's probably the easiest to see because all the others are kind of convoluted up there. But you can see how there's the red pin, and that's a level 3. And I am not the greatest at remembering what all of our trauma centers are, so I apologize about that.
That's Archibald.
Thank you, Archibald.
I'll fill you in, Melissa.
Perfect.
We walked through this now at least weekly for the last.
Yes, yes. So Archbold, which is a level 3 now, but it was not a little while ago. You can see the gray around it, that those people who live within that gray should be able to get to that trauma center within 60 minutes of drive time. Now, drive time is estimated by using GIS, ArcGIS specifically, and it takes into consideration roadways, some travel issues such as rush hour traffic, but it does not account for things like snow, which we won't have here, or wrecks, or a downed tree or limb. So there are some issues with it. So this again is just estimated. Okay, so going through, I added in a couple of bar graphs so that you can see the change over time. So we have level 1s represented by green, level 2 by blue, orangish red, whatever color that is up there. And on your screens is level 3, and then level 4 is black. So you can see how they kind of have gone in and or up and down and up and down, and you can't really see how they moved between each other through this, but I do have a graph I will show you in a little bit that will give you an idea of the movement. But you can see that our current 2020B, which is down on the bottom right, that's because there was an update in 2020. So that is where we currently stand. We have 5 level 1s, and then the rest of them are all up around 8. You will see throughout this presentation 2019 B or C, or you might see up 2019 update and then update 2. That just represents different lists that we got throughout the year. Okay, so first we're going to start with Trauma Center Levels 1 and the change. So this is what we looked like in 2004 for levels 1 and 2. I have to get used to the Mac. Give me just a minute. Nope. That is what we look like today with our 1s and 2s. We decided to combine 1 and 2 because they're more similar in what types of care they can give and provide. So 2004, this is the list that we started with. So level 1, we had Grady Memorial Hospital Medical Center of Central Georgia, Medical College of Georgia, Memorial Health University Medical Center. Let me also say that I stuck with the names that were there in 2004. For 2004, we changed throughout. And then level 2, we had Atlanta Medical Center, Floyd Medical Center, Gwinnett, Hamilton, John D. Archbold, and then Medical Center of Columbus and North Fulton. As we progress through the years, we do see some changes around 2009. So in 2009, we added Athens Regional Medical Center. This was new to the trauma system. 2010 remained the same. In 2011, we added Atlanta Medical Center. This medical center upgraded from a level 2. In 2012, we added Wellstar Kennestone, and this was new to the trauma center. 2013 remained the same. 2014, we had an additional added hospital, Northeast Georgia Medical Center. They were new to the trauma system. And as I go through this, you can see the changes in the geographical coverage of area in our state. 2015 through 18 remained the same, but we did have an update later on in 2018 where we added Doctors Hospital of Augusta, and this upgraded from a level 3. We didn't see a change for the first part of 2019, but the second part of 2019 brought a change. We removed John D. Archbold. They downgraded to a level 3. In 2020, we had an additional change to our level 2s. We removed Hamilton Medical Center, and they also downgraded to a level 3. So just again, to kind of show you the difference between 2004 and 2020. Now we'll do the same thing for our level 3s. So in 2004, we had 1 level 3. And in 2020, we have 8. So in 2004, DeKalb, and I might be saying that wrong. I did, okay, good. Not from Georgia. I am from a very rural small town though. So as you were talking, I was like, yes, that's how that works. 2005 through 6, we just kept DeKalb. And then in 2007, DeKalb actually left the trauma system. So then we remained without any level 3s in 2008. And in 2009, we gained a level 3, Walton Regional Medical Center. This trauma center upgraded from a level 4. 2010, we remained the same. In 2011, Taylor Regional Hospital upgraded from a level 4. 2012, we remained the same. And then in 13, we added Trinity Hospital of Augusta, and Trinity was new to the trauma system. In 2014, we added Redmond Regional Medical Center, also new to the trauma system. And then in 15, we added Doctors Hospital of Augusta, new to the trauma system. Let me just kind of pause here for a minute, especially in areas like Atlanta and Augusta, where we have a couple hospitals in close proximity. You won't see both of the little pin drops because they're too close, so they're overlapped. In 2016, we added Fairview Park Hospital, new to the trauma system. In 2017, we remained the same. In 18, we removed Trinity Hospital of Augusta, and they left the trauma system. 2018 brought a couple different changes. We removed Doctors Hospital of Augusta because it upgraded to a level 2, not a 4. Don't see, that's my 2 a.m. miss right there. They upgraded to a level 2. Added Crisp Regional, they upgraded from a level 4, and then added Cartersville Medical Center, which was new to the trauma system. 2019, we stayed the same until the later part of the year when we added Wellstar Cobb Hospital, and they were new to the trauma system. And then we had a second update towards the very end of 2019 where we added John D. Archbold, and they downgraded from level 2. And one more change, we added Hamilton Medical Center, downgraded from a level 2. So in the last year, we have had 2 changes from level 2. And then we removed Taylor Hospital in, I think this was on the last one I got, so a week ago, and they downgraded to a level 4. So this is just a reminder. Reposition my map. So we have the level 3 in 2004 and level 3s in 2020. And then the last one, starting with level, this, I'm telling you, when you're not used to Apple products, okay. In 2004, for level 4, we actually began with nobody. But by 2020, there it goes again. I'm sorry. By 2020, we did have 8. So 2004, we did not have a level 4. 2005, we added Morgan Memorial Hospital. This was new to the trauma system. 2006, stayed with the same. And then 2007, we added Walton Regional Medical Center, new to the trauma system. 2008, remained the same. 2009, we removed Walton Regional Medical Center. They upgraded to a level 3. 2010, we added Taylor Regional Hospital. They were new to the trauma system. In 2011, we removed Taylor Regional because they upgraded to a level 3. We also added Lower Oconee Community Hospital. They were new to the trauma system. In 2012, we added Emmanuel Medical Center, new to the trauma system, as well as Wills Memorial Hospital, also new to the trauma system. In 2013, we had more additions. We added Crisp Regional and Effingham Health System. Both of them were new to the trauma system. In 2014, we added Meadows Regional Medical Center, also new to the trauma system. We had an update halfway through the year. We removed Lower Oconee Community Hospital. They left the trauma system. And we also removed Wills Memorial Hospital. They joined Lower Oconee and left, not joined as in together, but
Just a side note on Lower Oconee, the hospital closed altogether.
yes. I meant to make a note of that. Thank you. 2015 remained the same. And then in 16, we added Appling Healthcare, new to the trauma system. 2017 through 18, we did not see a change. 2018, towards the end of the year, we removed Crisp Regional. They upgraded to a level 3, and we also added Wynn Army Community Hospital, which was new to the trauma system. In 2019, Polk Medical Center came on board. No changes in 2020 until the most recent one, added Taylor Regional Hospital. They downgraded from a level 3. So just as a reminder, we started with nothing, and then we ended with 8. So there's a couple of things that we decided to look at, as well as going through the change in time. So this is what Georgia looks like. See if I can zoom in one. I'm going to zoom in just because there's nothing at the bottom. So this is what our coverage looks like within an estimated 60-minute commute for levels 1 and 2 currently in Georgia. And I'm going to zoom out because you need to have the larger picture for all levels. Okay. You can just grab the map and pull it over if you can't make that go over more. See, it's just not grabbing it.
It's not.
Not just me,
No, it's a problem with the website.
probably.
Gotcha.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You can just grab the map and move it to the
Gotcha.
right. Oh,
Well, I could until I just messed it up.
just click on that.
There you go. Is that it?
Yep.
Just like, look, I wanted you to make it better, not worse. Hang on, let it reload.
Technology.
So it's all the way down there?
Yeah.
Of course it would be.
It's okay. You can scroll pretty fast when you're not
Okay.
going through it.
That's where we're at.
Nope, keep going.
Keep going.
Yep, one more. Right here. One more down. Yep, right there.
That one? Okay. No, no. Pull the map over and put it back to
It's fine. I think it's one higher. Yep, this one.
that one. Okay.
A little bit more. There we go.
Here we go.
Okay, so this is the coverage. You saw this also on the first map that I had that shows Georgia with all of our trauma levels, trauma center levels, so 1 through 4. So again, you can see that it's pretty covered, but that whole lower part of Georgia really only has access to levels 3 and 4 at this point. So then we decided to try to do an inverse and show the dark regions that could not get to a trauma center level 1 or 2 within a 60-minute commute. So what you're looking at here, all that dark area of Georgia, these individuals are not going to be able to drive and reach a trauma level 1 or 2 center within 60 minutes. So then we thought, okay, we have that big blank spot down there. We have spots in other places too. So we thought, let's look at trauma levels 1 and 2 in the states surrounding us and see if it helps any of our citizens to get to a trauma center within 60 minutes. So this is, again, what we have. And then when we added in the other levels, 1 and 2 for the surrounding states, you can see that it helps a little bit, especially down in southwestern Georgia. And then we have a little bit of overlap on the northeastern part of Georgia and some down on the southeast side. But by and large, we still have that open area in the middle, southern middle portion. So then we thought, okay, there are a couple things that might be happening sooner than later, and we wanted to see if it would impact the coverage. So here is what we have termed the 2020 possibility map, and I'm going to take you through these steps in just a moment. But basically, we are expecting, or well, I don't know if that's the proper word to say, there's a possibility, there we go, that Phoebe Putney Memorial Hospital will become a level 2 and that Appling Healthcare will be leaving the trauma system. So if that happens, this is what you will see. So our current level 1 and 2, if we add Phoebe Putney, it will pop up right there, and we will add some population coverage or geographical coverage down towards our southwestern side. And then looking at the level 4s, this is what they currently look like. If we go a step further and remove Appling Healthcare, you will see that this area with the red X over it will no longer be covered. Now there is a caveat to that, because remember that there's other centers around, so some of that will still be covered, but its 60-minute commute will leave, which will leave us with a map that looks like this. So that's the possibility, the 2020 possibility, as we termed it. Yeah, I was thinking that as I was saying that, but it did not occur to me in the past, 8 months that we've been working together. Yeah.
Likely come to fruition.
Right.
The COVID impact.
That's right. So again, this is just to compare 2020, what we have currently, and the possibility if we make a change. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you. I'm going to need help, though, to get that Excel document up.
Any questions on this?
Liz, you could, just a comment, I guess. You could let me reduce it. I think that that's a direct result of COVID and the fact that they have to call it why they're not.
It is, their delay is, I talk quite frequently, with, Dr. Dent from
Probably
there.
as big as you can get it, because I
It
have some
has,
graphs on the
because
side.
as
So
you
for
get
this, I
level
can
one,
just do.
your
No, look at
level
that.
has gone to critical care.
That's
instead of
funny.
more
It
so
got smaller, but not
surgical. And it
That's right.
has
See this here?
Perfect.
tremendously impacted. They were, Phoebe was hit very hard in the very beginning.
And then it's just 2 fingers up, down,
It has.
left, right,
But they're still,
wherever you want to go.
they're now trying to sort of get things ramped up a little bit, and they're, I guess the projection now is probably about mid-year of 2021.
That's gonna be very long.
And we also, when it gets to our report, I'll tell you, we've also got 2 more level 4s coming in within the next few months.
Okay, so one of the things that Courtney, Liz, and I discussed on the phone call that we had like 3 days ago was it would be really great if we could somehow figure out a way to show the transitions of the hospitals in and out of the system, as well as upgrading and downgrading. And I have to report that that was really difficult. I can see it in my mind, and if I was a good artist and could draw it, it would make sense. But
I have a way you can.
oh, good. We need to talk then. So this is very rudimentary, and yeah, you'll just be able to see a little bit of change, but I thought it was worth showing. So let's make this larger. For level 1s, and again, because I don't know how to do this, I only know GIS stuff. You can't really see what these hospitals are. I can tell you, well, some of you can probably read that. I can tell you if you want me to click on them what they are, but this basically is showing you any of those that had reached level 1 or were level 1, the consistency of it. Okay, so the black line at the top is level 1, and the red line is level 2, and that is the one that popped up. So there was not a lot of change from level 1s. If there's a level 1 designation, we typically saw that level 1s kept that designation. For level 2, we start to see a little bit more of variation. So this is level 1 up top. So that's the hospital that we also saw on the level 1 side. Level 2 is this line that you see most of them on, and then level 3 is this line. So this is saying that we had at least one hospital go from a level 3 to a level 2, and we had 2 hospitals go from a level 2 down to a level 3. So that's kind of the progression of this. So still not a ton of change. Level 3 and 4, however, again, level 1 is up top. So the ones who were designated 3 and 4 did not get to a level 1. Level 2 is this line, level 3 is this line, level 4 is down here. This is the hospital that DeKalb, where it just kind of left the system after a while. We see that these went from level 4 to 3. So any line that is slanted to the right, that's a pop up. And then lines that are slanted the other way is a downgrade. So you can, again, see that there were some transitions that happened. And then for level 4, again, level 4, we're going to see on the bottom, level 1 is clear up at the top. So again, you see that there are transitions going from level 4 to level 3, and then there are transitions going from level 3 to level 4. So we do see more movement among our level 3s and level 4s than we do among the level 1s and 2s. So that was just kind of something that I hope kind of gave you an idea. Excel did not want to do the entire thing on one map. Of course, we have 34 trauma centers and like 16 years of data. So it threw a fit. Yeah. Thank you. If you have any questions, I will try my best to answer them. But I have great assistants who will be able to answer.
This curriculum, in reality, that probably looks better than it really does if you look at it from a level 4 standpoint. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the benefit that a level 4 gives us in the state of Georgia is, one, it mandates all the ER docs have to be less certified, and it provides us data from the registry. Is that correct, or is there additional on it?
Education.
I don't think, they're not required to be ATLS, so I think, yeah.
We don't even have to have an ER doctor.
No, it can be.
Yeah.
All right, so.
So there's a huge opportunity there. Let's say it's fertile for opportunity.
So, because there are other hospitals that are in the state of Georgia that aren't designated as level 4, that have board certified ER doctors in their emergency. You know, and so those aren't represented on the map. So the coverage is probably a little bit better, not great, but it's hard to gauge, right?
I think the key is variability. There is
Yes.
a lack of consistency, if
Yes.
you will, because when
There's
Renee
no
and I,
standard, right?
right, and when Renee and I went to Appling, we were shocked to learn that they required ATLS. So we said, oh, are you paying more money? Is your contract more expensive? And they said, no, the contract is the same, ATLS or not, we pay the same rate. So where we're hearing from some folks, it's a little bit more expensive to get those additional credentials added, but it doesn't seem to be that that's the case everywhere. So I don't know how we do that, but I think we have to, our task would be some sort of consistency, right? Because you see it when you get referrals to your center at Grady, you saw it, I'm sure, Dr. Adair sees it like me, and Dr. Ashley, you see it, it's very variable when you get transfers in from outside. So I would say sometimes you get transfers from non-designated centers that were, they just happen to have a guy on that night who drama, so they're really experienced and the patient comes back super, but then, the flip side is you can get a patient from designated center that, they scanned them and kept them for 8 hours before they sent them on to you, so.
I think our next criteria is really looking at these level fours and helping them, with metrics. We talked about these 5 things. I'm sure I'm remembering them all off the top of my head, but identifying an airway problem, identifying deep transfer, get what the other, there's 4 or 5.
Airway control.
Airway control, just, either alternative or getting IV started and help stabilization of the shoes or a binder. So there's 4 or 5 things that if we could just, as a group, with like you was talking about, get into the rural centers as a friend, as a contact, however we do that. And say, if we could partner with you and if we could get symmetrical across these centers, these 5 things, do them well, like blocking and tackling. Blocking and tackling, it's really good every time you're talking about it. If we can get them doing those 5 things, we could be extremely successful and make, save a life. And so I think that's the next thing we need to do, and this is a good way of showing. We've gone out from no level forward to several, and now it's time to work on quality and measure and remove barriers and help those centers get what they need.
I think we need to look at, I don't know. I work at the rural hospital. I looked it up before. The variability of the staff and positions. And there, to my knowledge, there's no requirement of any hospital in the state that ER physicians have any specific training other than they have a good position. So you have folks walk in who practice, they got tired of doing day in, day out, trying to take this, and they said, they walk in there and they trained 25, 30 years ago. They're in charge. And so that there is, we know that goes on every day. There's one other thing that I think EMS does well, that hospitals don't. EMS does protocols. So in the 5 things is something I think could be done. EMS, if we have a stroke, we know what to do. And trauma, we know what to do. Get into an ER, and I think urban ERs, in all honesty, just as bad as rural ERs, I've been a lot of those. If there is a question about what you're supposed to do, bam, 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 to get that patient taken care of. And the doctor may be seeing another patient, and maybe asleep in another room. There's things that we could teach the nurses and the physicians to do without thinking. That's a bad word, bad term to use, but you shouldn't have to think about what to do on these cases. It should be bang, 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 bang. At least for the initial stabilization. The other piece that we really need to work with, try to understand, I've talked to a few rural hospitals recently on the issue of getting patients out. They got a critical patient in their ER, they can't get out. And some EMSs say, well, I got to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 9 ambulances in the county before I'll transfer that patient. Okay? And critical trauma or ischemia, hemorrhage, stroke, my last ambulance in the county will leave. No question. I know that there's a lot to be saved there. I don't know what will happen in a half an hour or 12 other ambulance calls come in. I don't know. I know that I got somebody that might make a difference. That's not the case. There's a huge debate in my industry about who's responsible for that call, that transfer. And there is no answer. Because you got some US people who say hospital transfer is not part of our business anyway. So there's some questions that have to be asked and answered, and some resources that have to be done. And then the third piece of my particular puzzle is some of the small rural communities that the ambulance services take them to the nearest hospital and go up and put them out. But
if that happens to be a hospital that can't handle a patient, then we need to think about that. And I'm gonna preface that with one thing, because I have a policy that if you have critical transfer, critical trauma, it goes to a level 1 or 2 center. That's the stuff that I'm making. Depending on where it is in my county, if it's the south end of my county, maybe a Dr. Dunn. If it's in the south end of my county, it's over towards the west side, you got Dr. Access, and the north end, it's going to be the west. So that makes a difference. But there are cases that I want my medics to break my rule. You know, I had a quick conversation with a few times. I listened to her talk. There's one of my medics, one shot, 1-year-old, got to his chest. Bottom line is, I was telling him about not taking him to a medical center. He said, Courtney, it's the most blood. I was worried about the upper lung, putting up the blood. Took him to the off the chest tube, took him to AU. So medics have got to have, one, the ability, clinical skills and critical thinking skills to make that determination. And EMS directors and medical directors have got to be working to look at those cases one-on-one, so yes, wrong. And part of that is PHTLS and PTLS positions. I think need is probably hit it dead on. You got to have that local champion. You got to have somebody in that hospital that has a passion for taking good care of trauma patients. They've got to partner, not find that person to partner with them and help them with the charge.
Yeah, what we found in Region 9, and it kind of goes along with what the rural health is you know, because of the variability of the ER position, we've latched on to the head nurse, because that's a consistent, that person usually doesn't change. And so we put together cultures that put them at the head of the bed and the trauma bays and all these rural hospitals. We educated the ER nurse. She's going to be the one when the doctor says, you know, these problems, it says on there, and you should do this. And that's what it's not. It comes across a little bit better if they can point to something rather than say, hey, maybe you should try to do this. That's helpful.
If that champion could then take those things, those 5 things, and take it to the medical staff and say, here's the protocol for this patient in our ER. Then the nurse has somebody back her up, and that would be great. Liz, would you, there's been a lot of discussion about this. I think it's time now with our partners. I think we got enough data and enough, what we're doing enough to really start putting some of this down on a template or writing. Why don't you take a stab at that? Maybe with Courtney, with Nita, with Dr. Miller, and let's maybe our secretary here too, but let's get something down on the 5 things. I understand the military already has a project that they've done. Maybe we could partner with and transition that into civilian. There's a lot of opportunity here. Maybe just a brief half page, how that looks, and what we need to do next steps. And then would that be possible for the next meeting to have something to talk about?
Absolutely. I
Or is that
think,
too fast?
no, I think it's where I agree. I accept that challenge. I love it. I think it's perfect timing. And we need to figure out a way to support this and move forward and close some of these gaps, whether it's geographic or, as Courtney mentioned, educational. But a lot of opportunity, and I think we've got the right folks together now to make it happen.
Okay. Dr. D. Miller, was there anything else? Thank you. That was a lot of work. We appreciate your volunteerism.
You're welcome.
It's the official commission.
If you could look Renee in on that too, for that 5 minutes.
Yes. I'll have to. She's already.
All right, with that being said, why don't we take about a 5-minute break? Just everybody stretch their legs, just cramped here. And then we'll start back. Let's see, why don't we start back at 5 till 2. Yeah, 8-minute break.
Melissa, I just want to introduce myself, Lori. Hey, Ray.
Yes, I was like, I know, I saw her, she's gotta be here. Which one is she?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Nice to put a face
I
on
know. Great work.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. You know, you always have that imposter syndrome.
Just-
Here, all these people, and they're like-
Just to make sure that everyone online heard, we're going to take an 8-minute break. We'll be back before 2 o'clock.
I hope to add that into the grant that like is stalled right now because people wouldn't want to.
Well, I know, I'll talk about it later.
Okay, good.
I mean, everyone's.
Good. Because I still have felt nervous. Like, I really have nothing to get. I mean, I can send you the emails.
Yeah, no, it's all understood. I mean, Dr. Ashley is actually, doing one of the programs too, and he feels like a shining star because he's almost done, but, it's only because it's all. But everybody is pretty much,
I'm glad you heard that. I think I'm just gonna have to flip my point of view. So, like I said, in the thing, I was focusing on getting everything at once and then doing it.
yeah.
Build it that way, and because I have almost all of it.
Okay.
I have watched on that experience in all kinds of different, well, 4 states of this.
In a way, I'm not.
Seriously.
Like, what is there?
Yeah, they just-
Yeah, bring that together and then we- Like I said, Karen's with them.
I'm not really sure yet.
The HDMI extender, right?
So I'm getting access to the report that way, but it's not children that are in my study because they're parents.
What office is that? Like,
I don't know.
After the.
I don't know who.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It was switched last year. I can't remember.
Come on now. Why wasn't I done that?
It might be Coke.
No, that was one thing I began to realize as I learned more about the other SOAR offices across the country is, you know, why have we not been involved? We, Georgia, not been
I
involved.
have contacted.
So, and I
They're the
think
ones
some
that
of that
pulled
was,
the autopsy reports, and that's what I'm going
I,
after.
you know,
That's what I'm going
Charles very often
And
felt like we are
I
at
got to
max
run around
capacity,
and
we
send it
can't
to the
start
main
taking on
person who
more
does
things.
child fatality review.
And
for
so
the
he
state,
didn't,
And
and then when
I
Patsy
can't
came along,
access it.
it was
And then I went back to the medical.
We started
examiner
growing a little
who's
bit,
not-
but she
who's
still
one of
was
the state, but the
concerned
assistant,
about us.
and she said, well,
Yeah.
contact this person.
Seriously?
That's an issue.
So it's just like, and I told them, I said, you know, you don't have to send this, I will come to your house, sit down, as a grad student and write it all down. I will do it.
It's your health that's bad, we already know each other before we ever came into.
So my hope was by getting on all the meetings, and I mean, I'm on probably 15
But still,
committees now.
you know, there was a lot.
My name would come on, and then they'd be like, oh, she's not out of
Kind of time
What she's doing is
period, we
good.
had some, You know, we have to with our.
Right.
Every
Every time I get an idea, it's just
About that time.
like,
And so it was just, it was kind of like, well, you gotta bring.
Okay, well, I'll think about that too,
Okay.
if there's,
Honestly, what else can we do?
Jonathan, Cook. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were fine, so you.
I know.
came in, So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Farmer, come on, man, I was there, she was like, me, always look at things.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
You two fools are causing us to work at night, so part of it was just, you know, it's no different in our office.
Yeah, that and then,
They don't want to do anything different, they don't want to change.
child service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Change what they can do.
Oh my gosh,
So I
mine
have
was,
one, but it's small.
yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Like, when you live in so many
I
states,
know
you
there's
work
a
with
big-
them.
I've got a whole bunch of stuff.
I was told I probably won't be able to get. And I mean, that's fine.
Yeah,
I have to get it at the same time.
And
And
then,
then,
again, I'll send you
How
some
many
of
boards
those.
are you doing on? Or, I mean, is this yeah.
Yes,
So
that'll be
identify
fine.
I can use the identifier. But I don't have to connect all of them. So I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that's a message
that okay? We'll be a university.
What's great in Georgia is that, you know, most of these projects are tied to institutions, so there is some oversight to say, like, where are people that are moving forward? Take the oversight for all. A little bit of that, more so than.
And that's you're working with.
That's
Right.
But that's okay. And, you know, they just started with it, which I know I didn't really do a lot of feedback, but honestly, it's taking from the like our reviewers are looking at scores, not really a lot of feedback. Because they were all, you know, it's right in the middle.
Right, I know.
And we just like, I pushed on.
Like,
Yeah, anybody can do anything right now.
Yeah.
Robust, but it just ended up being what it was.
And Liz kind of told me that too.
Yeah.
She said that it wasn't that it was a project. Or basically what? If you're outside of the university, I have to have salary covered if I want to apply for the grant. So
And really, it was small, but it was all, really small grants that got funded, and it was really just to be able, I think the whole thought initially was just to be able to replicate.
Yeah.
You know, make a large impact with the small amount of money. And, you know, because we didn't have time to get together as a review board, and consider, you know, how we're going to use theirs. We kind of just had to go with it, but that's our first round. Like I said, there's going to be more opportunities in the future with that for sure. It all okay.
Right. And it's not stopped.
Yeah.
I know. I think I'm really
Well, and then it's like, something right now. You know, they are like somebody. Oh, you're on here.
Right. My neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of
We live in
them have
medical
already
world.
had it. Most of them are fine. I was worried, my right next door neighbor had it on 4 months. They both had it, but it didn't. I mean, I know a lot of that.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, they're really good.
And I've
I thought she was gonna say she was gonna smoke something else. You do that before dinner, so you're hungry.
it's just real big. Yeah. Spread out. Well, I've never liked being on top. I will in fact go to more concerts if you do that. Oh, really?
Ready when you are.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started?
So nice to meet you.
We'll reconvene, and I think we'll start out with the system planning and RTEC update from Billy.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. We're going to make this really, really short and sweet. As you noticed in your packets, we didn't have the long RTAC reports as we've done in the past. Again, as everyone knows, operations have been decreased a little bit due to the COVID activities, but they are getting some things done that are worth noted. So in the regions, a big portion of what's been done is getting caught up on training. And again, thanks to GIMSA, as Liz has done multiple times, for helping to make that happen. They've really done a great job in getting those funds spent and getting a lot of classes done in the regions. So we've done quite a few TCC courses around the state. We've done some farm extrication courses around the state, and we've also done the skills labs, and those have continued to be incredibly successful. They've received a lot of acclaim, and it is by far our most popular educational course. So we really are very grateful to the EMS subcommittee for continuing that. We do still have an additional 6 of those to be taught before the end of the FY. So the EMS subcommittee gave us basically enough money to do 10 of them, so 1 in every region around the state. So in addition to that, I'm just going to go ahead and give a quick little kudos to Region 2, not to single them out, but Region 2 is still working on their blood products administration for pre-hospital care providers. They are having some pretty good success with it initially. They're still getting some data together to present, but they're having so much success that Region 10 is actually looking to piggyback off of that as well. And then we just got a couple other things going on with some PI things going on in some regions in the very beginning stages of collecting data, so that we can work and give some presentations for that coming up. So the other thing we did want to talk about was the Stop the Bleed video. So I'm sure most people in the room know that Georgia has led the Stop the Bleed program nationwide. We've taught somewhere around about 10% of what has been done nationally for this program. That's pretty good considering we're one of 50 states. But in doing this, we really needed to start figuring out a way how schools could be able to train themselves. And so a lot of the schools have school nurses, obviously, but most of them did not feel comfortable doing the didactic portion of the course. They're okay with doing the checkoff, but not with the didactic portion. So we started out on this program thinking, let's do a video that we have now completed filming. And the goal was that we partner with ACS. So this is our second round at this. The first round, they had some concerns. We handled those concerns. ACS has now looked at it, and they're incredibly happy. In fact, Dr. Lynn Jacobs, who is the head of the Hartford Consensus, actually gave me a call and said, wow, really like this, very thrilled with it. And so pretty much that sealed the deal for the endorsement for the ACS. So we are working on getting an MOU signed, just so that we can co-brand this. And basically, we're going to get a release nationwide. So wanted to at least let you see a short little bit of it here. Dr. Ashley's acting debut. Right. He'll be looking for his Academy Award later on.
It can happen anytime, anywhere, to anyone. The only thing more tragic than a death is a death that could have been prevented. If you were in a position to save a life, wouldn't you want to know what to do? For most people, the answer is a resounding yes.
I'm Billy Kunkel. I'm the Deputy Director for the Georgia Trauma Commission, as well as a certified flight paramedic. Trauma is the #1 cause of death and disability for children and adults under the age of 45. Trauma can be the result of an accidental fall, motor vehicle collision, an assault, or various other mechanisms of injury. Traumatic injuries can happen anywhere. Could be at home, at work, or at school.
The #1 cause of preventable death after injury is bleeding. The adult human body can hold anywhere from 4 to 6 liters of blood. When a serious trauma occurs, it's possible for someone to bleed to death within 3 or 4 minutes. Nationally, the average response time for emergency services is from 7 to 12 minutes. That's why it's so important for people to be equipped with the knowledge of what to do in these situations until help arrives.
The Stop the Bleed program applies the CPR model to trauma. Our program empowers witnesses to become immediate responders with simple steps that can mean the difference between life and death.
Oh, no. Right. That's what I was just thinking. Okay, well, maybe that will be all that we show, because
This video.
I want to see Dr. Ashley.
it's the Wi-Fi. Okay. Let me make that happen.
I'm doing the same thing over here.
Thank you. That's hold it down, Billy? You should, it's blinking as long as your green light is on. You don't have to, you shouldn't have to hold it. You want another one? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's blinking. I don't know what that means. Oh, sure, your daughter's nipping here now. I think it might be a battery issue. All right, thank you, Dr. Ashley. The budget subcommittee, I've been driving the members of the budget subcommittee, Courtney and Dr. Dunn, crazy with changes in education and time with our consultant to optimize our financial management, but I think all of it's moving in the right direction. And we'll be seeing changing years with contracts and grants and the ways that we have report outs and so forth. So all of it will be good. We don't have a lot of updates about our actual budget because we do not have any information in terms of whether or not we'll have AFY dollars or the 2021 final budget. So we will bring that when we have it. But as Liz alluded to a little bit earlier in the meeting, of the $1 million that was originally proposed to assist rural Georgia with trauma center, the book proposal, as we came to call it, we were given back $300,000 of that. So the budget subcommittee will be tasked at our next meeting to spend a fair bit of time fleshing out and coming up with ideas and proposals of the best way to spend that money. And then we will bring that proposal forward to the commission for consideration because we will need to probably wrap that up. Just correct me if I'm wrong, because those could be AFY dollars, right? That is correct. Yeah, so we will need to make a decision on how we need to move forward with that money so we can get it spent. So you thinking about that, Courtney and Dr. Dunn? We'll talk about that at the next meeting. So on behalf of the budget subcommittee, we have a few things to bring forward to the full commission for consideration and voting. One thing is on your tab, the first one is PD Putney. That is a trauma center startup grant that they have submitted to us. And if you look at that, for a total amount, we were giving them the opportunity to spend $300,000 as to assist them in putting all of the structure and foundation in place in preparation for their ACS verification. And you'll see under that tab what they had submitted to us to approve expenditures on. So if you'll take a minute to just briefly look at that. And then I'd like to entertain a motion and a second to accept this, and then we can open up for discussion if anybody has any questions.
I certainly like the education, and we definitely need that. Getting on the work. Oh, yes.
I'm learning my Robert children water.
So.
It doesn't need a motion? Oh, okay, Courtney shaking his head. I'm disappointed. Just about. Just about. Okay, so we can just discuss it. All right. Then go forward for the subcommittee. Liz, where's that book? It's right here.
Right there.
It's right here, closed.
So I agree with what Dr. Ashley said about education. My only question is, there's a lot of education beyond ED nurse. Is there any TNCC that's going to happen for them, or are they already trained?
So, okay, this is actually their revised list, Michelle, and I can talk about it to you offline because a lot of the money was externally focused. So, and this is the first time we've ever asked for any kind of application process. And the reason we're doing this is because this data will help us inform where centers, when they're starting up, what areas do we need to fund. So a lot of it you'll see is even in the one-time funding applications are equipment heavy, but I'll let you move forward. Sorry, before we put the motion. That didn't happen.
No motion, just discussion.
Okay. So I think, and I just knowing the trauma program manager here at PV is an instructor in TNCC as well as ATCN. So that's a huge focus for them. So
I just didn't want, there was nothing on there at all about using their.
They probably haven't, because they've been functioning, someone visit the back of the trauma center for quite some time, because we were the only game in town in that area. And they have been trying to get into the system, it's dependent on their support, physician and administrative support. But they're, some program managers, been part of our program manager group for a very long time. And so she's already laid some download for that.
And they do have T-CAR in there.
Yeah, we
Just
just saw
every
that.
thousand, yeah.
I was gonna mention that we just offered a grant funded T-CAR to them over the summer. They were the ones that did the first online version of T-CAR. And they educated across the board, they're, more interested in that.
Any other comments or discussion or questions about PD's proposal?
I'll call. And I'll go ahead and call for a vote that we approve the budget subcommittee recommendation. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there anybody online, Aaron, that we need to document?
Dr. Smith.
Are you able to hear them?
Yeah, he's on mute, I believe.
It looks like some folks are still having trouble, they're still waiting.
Here,
Did you vote? Jay, did you vote?
He has not voted. He did ask if we can move the mic closer to the board members, because you sound far away. Oh, he's typing.
I think between our masks and the, it's a little problematic.
Oh, is Vic on the line? I saw his name pop up.
Yeah, he's on line.
Vic is there too? Did Vic vote?
Vic has not voted either. Can I hear you, Billy?
The clarifying is the motion that you're discussing now just for the startup. Okay,
Yes.
so then that's we'll do it separately.
Vic votes aye. I hear him. Vic votes aye. Well, I don't hear him, but he says it.
Okay. All right, then it carries, correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you for that. All right, the next set of grant applications that you have is the one-time funding opportunity for the participating centers in the system who are currently not receiving ongoing funding. And it starts with the Children's Hospital of Georgia and goes through, you'll see the Floyd Medical Center request. And again, I'll give you a few minutes to briefly look through those. They're broken down as to what their request was and the total dollar amounts that they were requesting. So look at those, we'll entertain any questions, and then Dr. Ashcroft, it'll be easiest to vote on them as a once everybody's questions are clear. And the Floyd is actually Pulp. They're just part of the Floyd medical, Floyd health system. And the dollar amounts, if you recall, just to refresh your memory, the money that we allocated for the one-time funding was equivalent to that center's level readiness costs only. We could not do uncompensated care because that requires historical data.
Any more time? Okay, all those in favor of discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the package as presented by Dr. Maderos? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay,
And Dr. Ashley, Vicky Jago said yes.
okay, and that carries. So there was,
All right, thank you very much. That's all we have from the legislature.
okay, then why don't we move into the GCTE subcommittee report here in Hill?
We actually have Jesse Gibson on the line. As you are.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Jesse? We can hear you, Jesse. Go ahead.
All right. You guys have the full summary in your packets, but I'll just summarize a few things here for you. First of all, we'll be meeting tomorrow, actually 1 o'clock tomorrow. The GCTE meeting will be held virtually. And then I'm going to give the subcommittee report. So first off, the Trauma Registry Subcommittee, their main project over this past year, as most of you know, has been working on the Georgia Data Dictionary. And speaking with Tracy Johns yesterday, she's very optimistic that we are basically finished with this. And hopefully we'll be distributing the dictionary at the beginning of December. They also stated that their 2021 goal is to coordinate meeting agenda and education items with GCLIP and the GCTE PI subcommittee activities. So moving on to the Performance Improvement Subcommittee, the main thing that they've been working on is a PI playbook as a resource to GCTE members. Most of the centers submitted their some example PI plans that are being stored on the Foundation's library site for everyone as a resource. A current project also is that they are working with 2 different groups to develop example PRQ answers for the level 1, 2, and 3 facilities. And this will also be placed on the Foundation's site as a resource. Anastasia Hartigan is going to be transitioning out of the chair role of that committee, and John Pope of Cartersville Medical Center will be assuming leadership of this subcommittee in 2021. And then from the pediatric subcommittee, they've been continuously meeting, and they're working on a few things. The data collection for the pediatric radiology project. They've received some data from 4 centers and encouraging other centers to submit that data as well for analysis, and so that they can determine the next steps. Also looking at making sure contrast for abdominal CT scans is utilized by weight-based dosing. And then also they've uncovered that there's some pretty consistent issues with PowerShare among all the trauma centers. So they are trying to work with the folks at PowerShare to ensure that each center has the proper access for sharing images across facilities. And then on to the injury prevention subcommittee. They also continue to meet monthly and have really been being creative in their work during the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's been good for that group to share what they've done to still do injury prevention activities, even in the midst of our current situation. They have worked with the Georgia Trauma Foundation to publish an updated falls prevention social media guide. So that's a good resource for all the centers to use. And they're also working on a safe firearm storage social media guide. And then last, the education subcommittee, they were informed that funding for the education subcommittee has been suspended at this time, but they are still working to develop some plans on how they can move forward with this new environment. And that's all I have. Again, the meeting is tomorrow from I think 1 to 3. And does anybody have any questions?
I don't see or hear any, Jesse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Courtney, EMS subcommittee.
So if y'all remember last meeting, we were concerned very much about the education process and being able to go forward. We were particularly, subcommittee is particularly interested in the GIMSTA does 2 main conferences a year. One of them is an education conference that's designed to help educators keep receiving news. We partnered with them, the subcommittee did, and I was very pleased. GIMSTA did a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time to be able to pull together a very, very good virtual conference. were two speakers specifically dedicated to trauma. One of those I thought was particularly I enjoyed. I can't say that. I won't tell you there's things that he said that I didn't know, but there's things that he said that I forgot to pay a lot of attention to. So I'm trying to work with Jim to get that released so that I can share it with the subcommittee, share it with the group here in the subcommittee, and maybe use that statewide because it reminds us of how important some of the basic things that we do to keep trauma patients alive. The thing I'm thinking about most is the issue of hypothermia and the importance of that and the different ways to give blood and not give blood. So I'm going to try to work through that a little bit. I mean, a conference normally has about 500 people. I really don't know how many participated. One of the true advantages of it being online was I was on vacation that week. I didn't know. And I had another 2 weeks to watch, and I was able to watch more sessions online than I would have been had I been there in person. So a lot of good education, and we did a good job. I was very grateful for that. Another piece that we're doing in education that I'm particularly excited about is a partnership with the Arbinger Foundation. I would encourage you, if you've never heard of the Arbinger Foundation, to go online and Google Arbinger Foundation and look at some of the work that they're doing. We have trained, I want to say about 30 facilitators at this point. And our goal is to go out now and train EMS people. My personal goal is to get EMS people and ER people in the same room. That tends to be a flashpoint between the ER and EMS at times, and communications is not always the best it could be. But this class is developing the outward mindset. It is an excellent class. I think it will help develop a better working relationship between the ERs and the EMS. Who knows, we may get some positions in there, and at times pretty valuable, but extraordinarily good class. And we appreciate that. I was able last Thursday to go to the banquet that we do every year for the leadership course. They had 23 to start, 23 to finish. That was year 9. We will be funding year 10. I already have agreed to that, and it will start like mid-January sending out applications. It's a competitive grant. They usually give about 40, 50 applications for 23 slots, something like that. One of the guys in particular, I'll say this, next year will be year 10, and I hope at year 10 that we will do a big banquet, invite everybody back from the Trauma Commission, and I hope we get Patsy and Nita to come, and all the folks who helped put this thing together, make it happen in a room to see all about, at that time, about 250 people that will be trained in this. I truly believe that can help make a difference in rural Georgia, although it's a statewide, it's not just rural. Started off rural, but we were able to, thanks to the Trauma Commission, push it out. So I'm hoping to do that next November. If that pulls off, we'll certainly invite everybody. But what I was going to say, one of the guys has been in EMS leadership for 32 years. He said, I've done Maxwell courses, I've done all these other courses. He said, I learned more about leadership in the first week of this class than I have in all my years in EMS. The first week, we keep doing it Georgia Southern with the PhDs and the leadership folks who teach leadership at college level. And then we have 2 weeks that we dealt with subject matter experts in EMS world, Billy and I'm buying ambulance. I'm not getting locked up with Medicare stuff. And then we come back to the final week of Georgia Southern for those faculty to kind of roll it all together. And I think it is, but it's a really good class. I encourage you. We'll let y'all know when it is. If y'all can drop in, that would be great. A couple other things. Three things coming up with us. We are looking at developing a learning management system. The thing with leadership, educators conference is kind of a wake-up call, slap in the face, if you will. So we have a meeting on December 3rd to just start looking at perhaps Pete Kionis is going to chair. He's going to be at Metro Ambulance. The idea of that meeting, the goal is to do a brainstorming type session. Is if we do this, should we do this, and if we should, can we, and how would we do it? And then if we develop a system, what would it entail? Who would be our partners? What sessions should we have? What capabilities should we have in the system? And who should it be available to? You know, I'm an EMS guy, but I'm also a hospital guy. And ER nurses could, they could get on and watch some of the stuff that's there. You know, that would be just great. So we're going to have all those discussions, and David's got some desires of system too. He and his people are going to get the meeting, so we're trying to figure out that thing. If we get through that session, I hope to do one more session and actually develop a formal SWOT analysis on that process. And how can we plan it up front so that it works and is sustainable? So that's December 3rd. On December 10th, we have a smaller group to be looking at the budget specifically for 2021 and 2022. We're trying to get ahead of the 2022 so we won't get behind. And the final thing is on January 21st is a full subcommittee. We've got two sessions, the budget session and the subcommittee. We're doing it at Morgan County Public Safety, which have a nice room there, and we can split out so we can meet appropriately. I'll be tickled to answer any questions or try to avoid them as best I can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, the entry prevention is,
I have that, yeah.
you want to cover that one? Liz?
Yes, sir, I will be happy to cover it. The Injury Prevention Subcommittee met last on October 13th. The primary focus of that meeting was Dr. Dan Wu presented an overview of the Cardiff violence prevention model and really kind of looking at how we can potentially implement that where it makes sense across the state, how we can pull other partners, because it's a really great program that partners hospitals with the community, and essentially trying to mitigate these significant areas of violence and the injuries that occur as a result. So it really gives the stakeholders out in the community a piece of the pie to kind of get in on the action department of the police as well. Michelle, you're very familiar with this program, and you were supportive of when I was afraid this program sort of started during that time. So it's a great program, and they're certainly looking for volunteers who are willing to kind of implement, and there's a toolkit for implementation. So it's not a huge cost for startup, so it's not a big money ask, but for the centers that are in those areas where violence is fairly high on their radar, this is a great program and a great partnership. The other focus of the meeting, also aimed at violence, was Rhonda Bailey from our partners at DPH presenting on the FASTER project that they were awarded. I believe that's through CDC, is that correct, David? And this is another using sort of surveillance data. So if you recall, we wrote a letter in support of that program. So what our role will become in this is that once they get some data that can inform interventions, is that we would be partners in disseminating some of that information, because we have the contacts with the folks where that can make a difference. So we look forward to that continued work. And then the next meeting, the plan is for a continued focus around Cardiff and whatever we've solicited in terms of interested centers for that. I believe Ms. Mabry will have a injury prevention grant report update, so that's very exciting. Some of the work, we finally are getting that $90,000 in the community. I think all grants are awarded at this moment, right? So that's really exciting, and we'll get to hear, you know, even with COVID happening, we did, Lori reached out to folks, and they still were very eager to implement their projects. So we look forward to hearing about their progress, because we know this work has to continue regardless, and it's just going to look a little bit different than it has previously. Also, you all may remember that I had the iPrice Emory MPH student that was working on a little data for us. So that was sort of like the iceberg. There was so much on the bottom beneath the water surface, and really kind of trying to quantify that sort of corridor of death that, you know, we all know Dr. Pat O'Neill like poured his heart and soul into that data, right? So that's not really easily replicatable. So partnered with, again, our colleagues at DPH, Injury Prevention, Lisa Dawson. They've been such good partners for us in figuring out how can we leverage the infrastructure they have and maybe sponsor students to be under their domain, because they have the expertise to really guide the students in these databases that are very complex. And so it's just hard to have a student that's got a summer to have a project and really glean something super meaningful about that. So this poor girl worked her heart out. I really do want you to see the result of her project, because it does still give us some interesting information. It's just not robust to the point where it can answer questions for us, but it does sort of give you a picture of injury prevention or injury in the state. And that's it. And that all the subcommittees now are on a regular cadence of quarterly meetings. And as Courtney said, we're, even having sort of ad hocs and work groups that are meeting in between. So there's a lot of great work.
That's a great meeting. Very good, Liz. Okay, Georgia Trauma Foundation update. Lori, you ready?
Yeah. Well, I just want to officially welcome Michelle and Jim to the commission. Welcome to the group. Michelle, I know her well, and I'm excited to have you here. So there's not a lot of introduction to the foundation for you. You're well aware of who we are, but Jim, I'd love to spend some time with you and catch you up to speed with the Georgia Trauma Foundation. Just a couple updates before I jump into foundation stuff. Liz, do they have the grant research reports? So great. So as promised, you will get reports for the research projects that are outstanding twice a year. So this is their requirement for November. If you will remember, way back in May, we did give everyone a no-cost one-year extension to their projects due to COVID. And some of them are still stalled, some of them are moving forward. Dr. Ashley, and he's kind of our shining star right now, I will say. But in all of the reports, you'll see that everyone has updated their estimated project completion date due to the extension. And, as I was talking to Melissa earlier, and she actually has a project here as well. This is our first time at the commission level giving out these research grants, these large research grants of multiple varieties. And we are in the middle of a pandemic, so there's a lot of variables here as to when these will be completed, but we understand that at this point, and we will continue to monitor, and they will continue to update us on their progress. So as you review those, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those now, but also you can reach out to me at any point. I'm sort of the liaison, if you will, between the projects and the commission. So, and as Liz mentioned, with the injury prevention grants, you will get a similar report. It's because it's program based, not research based. It may look a little bit different, but you'll get those on staggering meetings. So you actually get your first injury prevention report in the next meeting in February. Any questions on this or just that process before I move on?
I really like Regina and I were just talking about, I really like the reporting process here. It's easy to see the bar graphs on where the research projects are.
Yeah.
And how we're moving along. So that is really helpful as we get over COVID and we get these projects completed and do the next round of research grants at some point, when the commission decides to do that. I think it's well oiled now. This is very nice.
Yeah, and we're learning.
It's a template for a lot of things.
We are.
It's a great template.
Yeah, and we're definitely learning lessons along the way, and I think that's was the point of it. So I'm excited to actually see some of them brought to fruition in time and get them presented at not only our statewide meetings, but even at the national level and published. And I think it's a really great work. that will really be valuable to not only the state, but trauma care in general. So very excited about that, and equally excited about the injury prevention programs. As I mentioned at the last meeting, it was no small feat to award those. We had such great, I mean, it was literally like within fractions of a point to award those. So yeah, again, and it difficult, but yeah, I think it just really shows the quality of work being done with very little at the injury prevention level. So I'm excited to see what's coming in those too, and I think those will be maybe completed before some of the research ones, just because they're programmatic. But actually being able to turn those into replicable programs that we can utilize throughout the state is really exciting stuff. So on that note, I will switch gears a little bit to just foundation specific stuff. We have been doing a lot at the organizational level since the loss of Dr. Mullins. Obviously that hit us all a little hard, definitely at the foundation level. And Dr. Bleacher's not here, but I owe a lot of it to him and his leadership of really taking it by the horns and leading us through this transition, and really an exciting transition. We are finally in the last phase of hiring our director of advancement for fundraising. We have completed all of the interviews. We went from 49 applications to 3, so it has been quite the process, but we're excited, and hopefully the next time that you see me, there will be an actual 2 staff members with the Georgia Trauma Foundation, which I cannot wait for. So a huge support to, or a huge shout out to Dr. Bleacher and Dr. Medeiros for your help and support during that time. Obviously, our board has taken a hit. Dr. Cole's term has ended, and Dr. Mullins has passed. So we have had to form an executive committee to really move us through this next process, which has been super, super helpful. And we've brought Liz on as an ex officio member, which I think, you know, has been needed for a long time, or maybe since the beginning, but it's nice that we were able to have worked it out, and think that the alignment of just having the executive director of the commission be part of the foundation business, just to make sure that we're all aligned and transparent in everything that we do, I think will help the process moving forward. So while I'm talking about board, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Medeiros, because as per our bylaws, as we bring on new board members, we need to bring that to the commission for just an approval. Liz, if you think that there should be a vote for that, I think it can go either way. It doesn't really stay in our bylaws specific. It just says that there needs to be approval from the commission.
Thank you, Lori. And the foundation has been extremely busy of late. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out how helpful Liz has been in this process as well, with the hiring of the development director. In fact, I have to admit that I stole her process that she put together for vetting and interviewing with the questions and so forth for our NP fellowship program. So she was all helpful in this, and I'm very excited that we're finally getting to the point. Hire development director, because I think that will help us move things forward with funding. But as Lori had mentioned, one of the goals of the foundation this year was to expand their board, because John and I are holding things together fairly. With the inclusion of Liz as the ex officio member, but thanks to Dr. Ashley, I believe there's a great candidate that is being put forward to become a board member of the foundation as well. And I'm going to turn it over to him just to give a brief background and update on who she is and what benefits she'll bring to the foundation. And you don't need that because you know her.
So Dr. Nympha Saunders was our former CEO, president, CEO of National Health System. So probably a lot of people know her name. Over the last 7 or 8 years that she's been making, she is now just retired, and there's a search going on for a new CEO, which from what I'm told, should be announced probably before the end of the year. So at that's good for the foundation in the sense that she has a lot of free time now, as far as in her duties of being a grandmother and a mother. So I think that's her main focus. But with that being said, she's been on multiple boards throughout her career. She has always been supportive of trauma for me personally at the medical center. So I've received tremendous support from my program. So she's heard me talk about trauma over the years. She's pretty well versed in trauma and understands how important it is. And so I think she comes in, I think she agreed to do this really. She goes way back to CHOA in time in Atlanta with John Bleacher. She knows him personally, reached out to her.
They were neighbors, apparently.
That's exactly right. They actually live in the same neighborhood. So when she realized it was John that was asking, she was much more warm to doing something in retirement. And can you hear me now? Okay. And so she agreed to sit on the board. So we're very excited about that. I think she'll be an innovator and a shaker and a mover and will really push to get things done.
I don't know if we officially.
Let's just do it.
I assume, since it is in the bylaws about approval from the commission or any new director or board members for the foundation. How do you want to handle that?
So why don't we just go ahead?
You just go ahead and vote.
Just go ahead and vote.
I would like to make a motion that we accept Dr. Saunders as a board member of the Georgia Trauma Foundation.
Second, Courtney, any discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed?
Jay's aye.
Okay. All right. It carries.
Okay, great. Thank you so.
2 or 3 additional people that are in the pipe.
Potential 2 to 3. Yeah. So in our next meeting, I would imagine probably in the next couple of meetings, we will be bringing a few board members to the table. So as it is in our deliverables to increase to 5 board members. We are hoping to expand upon that, but we also don't want to load everybody up in the first year as we sort of need staggering terms as well. So we're very methodically bringing people on board and realize that it's quality over quantity at this point. We really need committed, passionate board members. So we're excited about that. I think all of this is important during this transition to not only build our staff, but to build our board as we pivot into completing 5 years. And on that, we are working on, we haven't had really an annual report. So we are going to start with a 5-year annual report that really covers all the work that we've done in our first 5 years of existence, which I cannot wait to see put on paper because it's been a lot. It's hard to kind of see it sometimes when we're in it, but I think when we see it in presentation, it's a pat on the back to everyone in the trauma system because, while I might have been, the head of the foundation, it's taken this whole community to come together and make our system a success. So that will be coming in. We should have that for the next meeting as well. And then we will continue with an annual report each year following. On bringing everyone together note, we have been talking and we were definitely hopeful maybe in the summer that we were going to be able to pull off some sort of in-person meeting for February, but that doesn't look to be the case. Unfortunately, we were really hoping not to have to dive into the virtual world just because those of you that are new to our trauma system, I think that's one of the shining stars of Georgia, and one of the things that we really hang our hat on nationally is that we do all come together twice annually and meet and check our egos at the door and really work hard on patient care. And in this time of COVID, that's changed, and there's been a lot of turnover, as you all well know, at almost all of our centers. And whether it's from the trauma staff to the physicians, we no longer really know each other. So, and I don't know that we're going to be able to capture that virtually. So I'm still very hopeful, maybe for summer day of trauma, that we can maybe hopefully get together and get to know one another again and get back to meeting. But we, Liz and I and Dr. Dente and Gina have all had some preliminary conversations about February, and we are going to get to work on that sooner than later. There's a question of, do we just want to power through meetings for those dates, or if we want to try and work in some education. So we're going to make some final decisions on that and should have a tentative schedule for you very shortly. But just on, if you're marking your calendars, if you will, block out February 4th and 5th. There will be obviously the commission meeting on the 4th, and then our state meetings on the 5th. So more to come on that. Maybe we'll broadcast live from Chateau Lawn or something. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But we'll make something happen for that. And like I said, day of trauma still to be determined. I think we really presented on everything else. Work that came out in the GCTE meeting or update, working with the injury prevention subcommittee on Fall Prevention Week, which was great. I think that's a great ongoing relationship, and we hope to be able to do more. You know, we were really hoping for the summit in March too, that we were really excited for. So Crystal and I are going to brainstorm, you know, what we can do there, or if we just want to continue to postpone. But we can't continue to postpone forever. We have to get back to some sort of business. So there's that. And I think that is really all I have, unless anyone has specific questions for me.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah. Congratulations on the movement in the foundation. I know there's been a lot of work going on. We appreciate it.
No, and you've been part of that too, Dr. Ashley, and I want to publicly thank you for your support in all our endeavors.
No problem. Okay, Dr. Dente. Is Dr. Dente on the phone?
No, he won't be able to join us today, unfortunately. I think you kind of covered it. I think just the next step would be Regina coming on board December 2nd is the first task on hand is to create that survey that we will send out to participants so we can figure out sort of what the needs are and how we move forward.
Okay. You say she's coming on what day?
December 2nd.
Second, great.
If you could mention the December meeting for TQIP.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Since TQIP is still going to be virtual, do you have that date at your fingertips? We are going to still have a virtual collaborative breakout session. So TQIP is offering that, similar to what they would do in the normal in-person meeting where all the collaboratives meet. They're going to offer, I guess, rooms for, virtual rooms for the collaboratives to meet. So more information forthcoming on that, but I believe it was the Monday.
I think it was just the 7th. But yeah, we'll definitely send out a formal thing. But I think, I'm just come back to the mic for a second. I think it's going to be a great opportunity, at least, like I said, there's been a lot of turnover, and I know that they've talked about, or when we had the call about talking about February as well, they talked about having each center at least present who your TQIP champions are and your new trauma staff, at least putting some faces with some names during that meeting. So if you're part of that group, I definitely encourage you to attend that meeting. I don't know that you have to be registered for TQIP to attend that.
I think you do. Collaborative, yeah.
And I think registration is free. Didn't I hear that? So this is a great time for everybody, all the registrars, everybody in your shop to get free access to T-Quip and not have to travel like Courtney was talking about. I mean, it's a golden opportunity for everybody, you know, that even has an interest, even people that don't have an interest, that love where I wonder what this is, they don't have to travel. So this is a golden opportunity. Encourage all our registrars are going together to that. It's going to be sort of mandatory for them.
That may be something we can check out. We as a good county, good hospitals, to get out to good hospitals. Isn't it? Obviously, it's not designed, but the more they learn about the system, the part of the system.
I hear a lot of good talks about something they could institute if they wanted to, but they don't have to invest in it. So, no travel or anything. Okay, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
I just, what Lori said, reiterated the date of our next meeting is February 4th. Remember, we were kind to our schedules and we combined that January and March meeting into one February 4th meeting. And the reason it's February 4th is because we were trying to avoid Western trauma and one other meeting that's escaping me. Right, well, yeah, East, there was something else in February, I believe.
Southeast Surgical. Or it's just been moved to August.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I just saw on the website. That's why I was a little bit confused. So unless you're all, since there's been some movement in the virtual schedule, and I think Aaron went ahead and reserved the room just so we had it, we could move back to our normal third Thursday if you want to. Otherwise, we're already pre-scheduled for Thursday, February 4th. Whatever your preference is.
And we're still gonna stay with the 12 to 3 time frame, or we're gonna back to 10 to 1?
What's your preference on that, Dr. Ashley?
Doesn't matter to me.
Is this easier for you, Dr. Dunn?
Actually, it's harder,
Is it? Okay.
but that's just me. I don't know. I'll do it better this week. And everyone's engaged and keeping it around 3 p.m.
Everybody's what?
The fire was, everyone's going to sleep.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm open to either.
Well, we have the room all day from 9 to 5, so whatever decision you all make, we're going to hop off on it.
And just to interject really quickly, the collaborative call is Monday, December 7th, 3 to 4 Central Time, so I'm not good with that, so that's.
Yeah, it'll
So
be
to 3.
an hour later here. Is there an hour earlier?
Okay, so 4 to 5 on December 7th is the T-Quip collaborative.
And we'll make sure, we'll have Jean send out.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot more going on about that. In preparation with Chris. All right. And while we move into the Office of EMS and Trauma update, David and Renee.
Sure, thank you. So just a couple of things. You've got your report on there. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. So biospatial, I've shown that to y'all before. That's primarily for EMS data, and I've shown you kind of the power of that. But biospatial now also houses our trauma data. We're actually one of just a handful of states that has both EMS data and the trauma data. We were hoping to be the first state to have EMS, trauma, and crash records, but we are meeting some resistance with the Georgia DOT on getting their crash records in there. Because the ultimate goal of this system would be to link together the crash records with the EMS records with the trauma registry records. Because the crash records has a wealth of information that is not in either the trauma registry or in the EMS data. And so we really want to be able to link all of those together. We had a training last Friday to kind of highlight that. I think a lot of people in this room were actually on that, or online were actually on it, which was cool. What was interesting is at the end of that training, and we had said, hey, email, our email address to ask for access to that. Literally before I had clicked end on the session, I had people emailing, requesting access to it. But what was most encouraging is the hospitals that are in the pipeline to become trauma centers were the first ones to email me. And so that was actually very encouraging, is that they're already looking to look at that data from that perspective.
And in fact, so a lot of people requested access but haven't actually looked at it yet. But I can actually see who logs in, and those hospitals that are in the pipeline have already, I mean, literally they did it this weekend. So we did the training on Friday, I got them access on Friday, and they started looking at the data this weekend. So again, that was very encouraging to us to see that. If any hospital has not gotten their access yet and you want that access, just email trauma@dph.gu.gov and we'll get you that access. We've talked before about the NHTSA EMS system assessment. So, you know, the last one in Georgia was done in, I think it was 1995. Georgia was actually one of the first states to do that. And we had requested, this is always paid for out of highway safety funds. And so the office of, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, we partner with them on a lot of things, including crash records, obviously. And we had partnered with them and they had agreed to get the funding for it. And we all had a meeting just a few weeks ago with NHTSA. The problem is that we were going to try and do it this federal fiscal year, which of course would have had to have been virtual everything. And I was like, we were all kind of a consensus on that. That's probably not the best way to do a system-wide assessment. And so we did agree with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, because ultimately it is their decision on the funding, is to postpone it to federal fiscal year 22, which would be from October of 21 to September of 22. The current timeline that we're planning on would be early summer of calendar year 22, right? So that's when we would be planning on the NHTSA assessment. And then of course, following the NHTSA assessment is when we would want the ACS trauma assessment on that. The other thing I want to point out, and it's on the bottom of page 1 of 3. When we look at EMS data, which is of course more timely than trauma data, because trauma is always that, yeah, thanks right there. Trauma is always obviously a quarter behind. The EMS data, right, we have it within hours. And one of the things that we're seeing with our EMS data, and this is what biospatial allows us to do, is I can run a report and compare this calendar year from January 1st until today versus last year at the same time with the same parameters. When we compare crashes, so all of the crashes that are in the EMS data, we see that all crashes, and this is just 911 calls, so we're not doing like interfacility transport, but for all 911 calls for MVCs, this is all severities, has been down. Well, that makes perfect sense because hardly anyone was driving for a significant portion of time there. So you see, right, that dropped down by 7,744. The more concerning part, though, is even though we dropped overall in MVCs, the severity, or the most severe ones, which are severe, this is how our system defines severe, likely, fatal, and fatal, has actually increased from year to year. And so, and this is the crash reports from the reports that we get are saying the same thing, is that while the overall number is down, the severity of them, and sometimes, as was alluded to earlier, the speed of those is actually going up. And so it's kind of one of those COVID things. To put it in perspective too, and just so everybody is aware of this from the EMS data, opioid or just overdoses in general from the same time frame. So from 2019, from January 1st until now versus 2020. Anyone want to take a guess on the increase? Just a guess on how much it's gone up in 2020. 41.2%. And this is from 911 calls for EMS data. So this is one of those, it's going to be a chapter in our COVID book about the implications of COVID that are kind of the side implications from that. So that's just one thing. You also see on here about the quarterly reports, and I don't know if Marie wants to, I saw her online, but we have moved our quarterly reports to an electronic version, which of course always requires a learning curve. And so this one was our learning curve, and we've already kind of seen some ways to improve the process with that. You know, the way the process works now is the trauma center or the burn center submits their quarterly reports. It goes to Marie, who then reviews it as the state trauma registrar. And then once she reviews it, it goes then to Renee to review it from that other perspective. Well, what we found is that there probably needs to be an intermediate step there that once it goes to Marie, is that if there's any issues with the data entry, which we have noticed because people fat finger something that happens all the time, is that it needs to be able to go back to the trauma center to say, hey, you need to go fix this. And so we're working on that process for the Q2 reports on there. So that's all I've got, and I want to turn it over to Renee.
Okay, well, David covered a lot of the stuff for me, the reports and everything. We are continuing to start back with some of the site visits. We hope to have 3 done before the year end. COVID's put a foot in one of those for me. The team I had going, 2 of the members got affected and had to reschedule, but we're working on those, and we do have some that are one that's definitely scheduled, another one that's tentative date. So we're hoping to make that goal by the end of the year. By the middle of 2021, if things go well, we'll have at least 2, possibly 3 additional rural hospitals. I'm happy to say that for the first time ever, we'll have a trauma center in Region 4, which is the Henry County, LaGrange, towards the Alabama line, that area. We've not had a trauma center in that area before, had a lot of bites over the years, but no one commit. And so they will both be level 4s. Also, in our underserved area in South Georgia, we've got one that's will be probably designated by the summer there, that's another level 4. So we have altogether, we actually have about 5 level 4s that are working with us at the moment. I think probably 4 of those are actually contributing data, and 2 of those have met their 1-year mark. So we're moving forward with those. Unfortunately, we have had some issues across the system. As you heard earlier, we had a couple of level 2s that had to drop to level 3s. We work very diligently with those facilities to keep them in the system instead of them going out. And so far, that's been very productive to work at it that way. We never want to see a center drop out, because we feel like we have the capacity to continue to work with them. And as Liz mentioned, we went to one of our level 4s just to do that. They, were very open to us about their issues, and we've already discussed the pitfalls of what happens in 4s. But most of the ones are very eager, to participate. Again, the other thing that one of the things that we're trying to work with is the Rural Trauma Team Development Course. I know I corresponded with Billy on some of that, and I've also talked to Crystal. Of course, the problem with that now is you can't do it in person. So there's several facilities that are extremely interested in that, especially the communities that are coming into the system, and we really do want to push that. As far as the site visits are concerned, like I said, we're still moving forward. The ACS is telling us still that it may be March before they really talk about doing any significant scheduling after that. They're just going to talk about it. They have done a couple of trials of the virtuals, but it's my understanding those are only for current ACS verified facilities. They're not doing that for any new ones, but it's an ever evolving picture, so don't hold me to that. But I have been in communication with them, and they're very open with us about what they're planning. So moving ahead, we hope to get some of this back on track. And if anybody has any questions as far as who's in the loop for redesignations, or I call them the gap facilities, the facilities that were going for their verification, because that got halted, so they're technically still state designated. They're not ACS verified. Those are probably some of the ones that we're having to get things scheduled for. So just be patient. We're trying our best to work through all of this. But if you have any questions, let me know. Yes, sir.
So for those centers that are due for an ACS verification this year or next year, and are also due for a site revisit, but at a different time next year. So let's use my center as an example. We're due for a state redesignation in March and ACS site visit in December. Say we pass the state visit, but have a couple of deficiencies, or we don't pass the ACS visit. What does that do to the state designation? Does that put it at risk?
Well,
It would depend on what the deficiencies are.
Well, I mean, that you don't pass, they don't pass your ACS sections, but you pass the state system.
So this was one of the reasons why we did the provisional designation, is to allow the center to still stay designated, but we changed the status. So we do this with medics all the time and instructors all the time. This is provisional status, so that you have time to get back up to whatever that is. And obviously and the way we wrote the rule is that it can't be longer than a year for the provisional status. And so if that were to occur, right, knock on wood, it wouldn't, but if that were to occur, that's our option, is to go the provisional route and work with the center, so that we'd have to do another site visit, right? I mean, a state site visit, because obviously ACS is not going to come back in a 12-month period for that, but we would work with that center to get them back up to speed on whatever that deficiency was, and then do a follow-up site visit to take them off of provisional and put them on back on
So
the
we would be
regular.
at a provisional state designation after the ACS designation.
Correct.
And it would have been full state, okay, I'll talk to you about
And the ACS does do provisional as well. So, you know, they will come back. They will come back. And it's always just a focused visit of whatever that deficiency was. But honestly, we're working so hard right now to provide these centers that are up for these visits with support and information, and working with centers that have already been through the ACS verifications, that we hope that that will not happen, obviously knock on wood, because we're really trying hard to give them resources so that it's basically just a walkthrough and nothing major will come forward during those site visits. But, you know, with the implementation of the requirements for the level 1s and 2s and the future of the 3s to be ACS verified, we had some because of this, which is no fault of their own, it's COVID, but we have several centers that are so far out the window because we were trying to work with the consult visits and verifications, that we just feel that it's absolutely imperative that we go ahead with these state visits to make sure everybody is up to speed. And as I mentioned in one facility the other day, consider this as your prep for your ACS visit, that we can help you with that as well. And I'm also, as we're doing the teams, making sure that team members that are going into these facilities have that experience to help advise those facilities of what they need to prepare for. And if you're interested in being a team member, a surveyor, please let me know, because we have a new system for that. And thanks to our cardiac care office, they're providing me with some admin assistance. I'm having to learn how to let go of things. But honestly, we've worked through it, and I think it's going to be extremely well done. And I'm excited about how we're going to schedule this visit. So anyway, but I'll be happy to talk to anybody offline. That's it for me.
At the last meeting,
At the last meeting, you gave some data, and some of it was kind of distressing to me on average scene time. And I talked to you later, you said you got that from trauma registry.
Correct.
Could you go back to the GTC data statewide? I mean, can you look at the GTC data and look at critical trauma like you did here with these numbers, and then look at average scene time?
Like to compare it to previous years, or just in general?
I think if we knew what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really interested in that, because that's one of the key things that DHTLS talks about, is that critical trauma shouldn't hang around. I mean, they need to be on their way to a trauma center. If our scene times are long, we need to touch our heads.
But yeah, I mean, that would take me a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Renee, for all your hard work. Great report. Anything else that you left out? Okay. Well, we'll move into new business. I have no new business. We pretty much covered that. Anybody, anything that I left out? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we heard Jay that time.
Heard Jay that time. Jay is alive. Thank you, Jay. All right. We stand adjourned.
So just take us home now.
I have all these. Everyone had 9 real great ones. So we're gonna come in there, but I gotta work out the south.
David, if you have a moment, I would
So many to our accounts, so I gotta call them and set it out.
We don't want you to take.
I'm going to say, I've never been, I'm not gonna.
maybe I have talked to her at a conference that I attended. where she made my- So there's so many so much. And also, I mean, the grants that are perfect, they should have.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Originally,
Grant was over.